Well, good morning to you. Tori here from Overlook Horizon. We're back for some more Polaris Dawn action. It's EVA time. Time for a spacewalk. Here they are. They're getting ready. They're putting their suits on, and we are going to check in and see how this is going to go. This is super exciting. They're at about 600 kilometers in altitude right now. They are putting their suits on. We still got about 57 minutes to go before they actually exit and begin the spacewalk itself. Yeah, this will be pretty exciting. And this is the first commercial spacewalk. They're further out than the International Space Station, so there's a whole bunch of super exciting things here that are first for this mission. So it's also very early in the morning for me here. It's I don't know, hopefully where you are, maybe it's a little bit better, but yeah, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to make the best of this. I don't know why all the Polaris Dawn things are happening before dawn. I could do with better timing, but it is what it is. We're here. We're gonna watch. So let's see. SpaceX just started their live stream here, so I'm gonna switch over so that at least we got them full screen here, and then we'll kind of chat it up a little bit and talk about what's gonna happen. They've had some pretty cool views there, but I do have the timeline on the left-hand side. I have no idea. This is the first time this happened. I have no idea if that's accurate. I think it's, I don't know, about accurate, but we'll see. We'll find out together. So, couple of things. There is no airlock on the Crew Dragon capsule, so they have to depressure. All the astronauts have to be suited up, unlike the International Space Station, where only the astronauts going on the spacewalk get suited out. All 4 astronauts will get suited up, but only 2 are going to actually leave the vehicle and spacewalk. So all 4 of them get suited up. There's no airlock, so they have to depressurize the entire capsule, bring it down to a vacuum, open the hatch up. You'll get Jared Isaacman and Sarah Gillis will leave the capsule, do their spacewalk, test some mobility, all that kind of good stuff. Then they'll come back in, close the hatch, repressurize the vehicle, and then everybody gets to take their suits off. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, definitely. And again, there is no. It's a little bit risky, right? We haven't really done this before, at least definitely not on a commercial vehicle like this. I mean, we've done it before. You think back like the Gemini days, the Gemini missions, you know, we did spacewalks without an airlock. So it's something we've done before, but not on Crew Dragon, obviously. SpaceX's first go at it, not on a commercial mission. These are non-NASA astronauts. And so, yeah, a little bit of risk involved, but yeah, I think they're feeling pretty good. So right now, we can see if I switch to one of these views here. How about this one? And put myself up here in a little tiny circle. We can see there's a couple of gauges down at the bottom there. So you have what I think is the Dragon air pressure in the bottom left. We've got the timeline, the SpaceX timeline at the very bottom. Then we've got their orbital speed at 25,590 kilometers per hour. And then we've got their orbital altitude at 663 kilometers in altitude and climbing right now. So they are in, you know, yesterday they hit that record-setting altitude of 1,400.7 kilometers as their max altitude. They are no longer in that orbit. So they did that orbit for a couple of times. Then they did a few more burns to actually reduce their orbit down to a 190 by 700 kilometer orbit. So right now they are on the uphill phase of that. They're at 670 kilometers and they're going up. They'll go up to about 700, and then we'll see that start to come back down because they will be then heading towards perigee. So, yeah, right now we're going to see that climb up a little bit more. You'll also see, it's the beauty of orbital mechanics, but we should also see the speed decrease. So as you get close to apogee, your orbital speed decreases. And then as you get close to perigee, your orbital speed increases. So once we pass apogee, orbital speed will start to increase, and then we'll know that we've hit apogee and that we're on the downhill side heading towards perigee then. So let's check in with everybody and see what's happening here. I'm going to stay in this little tiny window here for now. We'll get the timeline back up in a minute. Let's see. Let me pop this out so I can highlight some chat. And then we can put y'all on the screen so that you can see it. One moment, and we will check in with everybody here. Let's see. I just have to change. I always forget to do this before I start. I have to update the video ID. And then I should be able to do this. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Cheshire Cat. Thanks for the update, Tori. Yeah, thanks for checking in with us.
On day one, the crew has been.
See, we'll turn them up a little bit in case they start to say anything of interest. I will probably. So I know some people don't like when I talk so much. Some people like when I talk. I will likely quiet down in a little bit as we get closer for a couple reasons. One, this is not routine, so I want to listen in as well. And two, it's 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm kind of tired. So we might just do a little bit of listening together and I'll take some questions from you because I'm kind of tired at 5 o'clock in the morning. And not to mention, I also woke up, I had to set an alarm and woke up for the first attempt at 1 o'clock in the morning and went back to bed and then woke up again. It's been a mess. Anyways, that's the plan for today. So I will quiet down so we can actually listen in and see what's going on. They figure, well, right now while they're giving some background and they're doing suit donning, there's probably, they're showing some cool things from the background of the mission. But right now we're not seeing anything like EVA related quite yet. So, let's see. Question from Sarah: is the plan to walk on the moon? Sorry, I haven't heard much about this mission. No, so this is an EVA or a spacewalk. This will be basically they are going to they're in orbit around the Earth. They're in a oval-shaped orbit where their closest approach to Earth is 190 kilometers in altitude, and the long side of the oval is 700 kilometers, or roughly 700 kilometers. It's still climbing. You can't see it because I'm in the way. But if I go to this view, you can see it in the bottom right-hand corner. They're about 700 kilometers in altitude on the high end. So they're in this oval-shaped orbit around Earth, and they are going to leave the vehicle. They're going to depressurize it, bring it all the way down to a vacuum. All four because there's no airlock on it, all four astronauts have to get suited up in the EVA suits. Only 2 astronauts will leave the vehicle. So they'll all get suited up. They'll bring it down. They'll vent it, bring it down to vacuum, open the hatch. 2 astronauts, Jared Isaacman and Sarah Gillis, will leave the spacecraft. They're going to be tethered, obviously, but they will leave the spacecraft while orbiting in the middle of space like that. Do a walk there where they'll go out, they'll test mobility, they'll be testing the EVA suits and how everything's performing, and then they'll come back, get in the vehicle, close the hatch, repressurize the capsule, and then everybody can take their suits off and go back to normal. So that's the plan. That's what's going to happen here soon. Let's see. A whole bunch of people checking in. I saw people check in before also as well. And let's see if there's any other questions that are in here. Don't see any other over on the YouTube side of things. So a little bit quiet over on YouTube, but of course that's probably to be expected being 5 o'clock in the morning. And we are multi-streaming, so I do see Christian over on Facebook. He's saying hello. I can't highlight the Facebook comments. I can only highlight the YouTube comments, but I do see the Facebook comments. So hello, Christian. Thanks for joining us. All right. Why don't we... So we do have some pretty gorgeous views here of the Earth. Like this is kind of awesome looking. We will see when they come out of the vehicle. Oh, they just switched away from that. I was going to talk about the Skywalker, the little handrails there. So we'll see them come out. That's a camera attached to the inside of the nose cone looking at the open nose of the Dragon capsule. So we will see them climb out of there.
Check back at those sites to catch
but yeah, let's listen in for a minute because I want to hear what's going on.
I snagged one. I got in there. I got a kid who
nice
needs one.
Yeah.
All right, now the first phase of the spacewalk, the preparation actually started just about 2 hours after the crew reached orbit. And this is when the pre-breathe process started. That's when the oxygen levels started to increase incrementally as the cabin pressure inside Dragon was started to get incrementally lower.
The pre-breathe process is designed to decrease the amount of nitrogen in the body, which then reduces the risk of decompression sickness, which can happen as atmospheric pressure lowers. Protocols like this are used for any spacewalk done today and might feel familiar to anyone here on Earth that has gone scuba diving and done a decompression stop after ascending from a pressure in deep water back up to the surface.
And to do all this, Dragon's just been slowly decreasing that cabin pressure. That allows the crew to acclimate each time the pressure gets lower. As they get ready for the lower pressure they'll be in the suit during the spacewalk itself. They've got the ability to pause the process if they experience any discomfort, but the ear equilibrium just kind of naturally adjusts as the pressure decreases. It's kind of like when your ears pop when you change altitude in an airplane. All 4 astronauts are going to be suited for the spacewalk today because Dragon does not have an airlock. That's also kind of why the entire cabin is going to be depressurized. That's why we have this kind of unique pre-breathe process with this stuff today too.
All of that brings us to now. So far, the crew has prepared the cabin for vacuum, which includes securing all loose items that they don't want floating around. They also completed medical checks, suit inspections, and final checkouts of the oxygen, venting, and nitrogen repressurization systems. After that, it was time to put on their EVA suits.
And now Jared and Sarah will be exiting the spacecraft today, while Kid and Anna will be supporting from the inside. Crew in the outer two seats, Kid and Anna, are going to be fully strapped in, and then the two in the middle seats, Jared and Sarah, are just going to be lightly secured ahead of the spacewalk, since they're going to be moving around and eventually heading outside.
As we listen into comms during the EVA, you may hear the crew referred to as EV1, which is Jared, and EV2, which is Sarah. Support 1 is Kid, and Support 2 is Anna. Again, they will not exit the Dragon during the EVA, but make no mistake, they are very much performing an EVA just the same, and their data is being collected as well.
Once everybody's in position, the seats are going to get rotated upright. Generally, they stay in the recline position for the majority of the mission, but we're going to rotate those upright during the EVA just to give more room to move about. After that seat rotation, the crew verifies that their heads-up display, or the HUD, on their helmet visors are turned on, operating as expected. This is how the crew will actually be able to keep tabs on the health of their suits, and they'll get some other stats of their suit operation during the spacewalk.
And that will take us to the first official go, no-go checkpoint to determine if the EVA can proceed. After an operations brief from the SpaceX team, the crew will announce their go, no-go status, and then it'll be time for the spacewalk to begin. It's expected to last about 2 hours from the time that O2 begins flowing to the crew's suits until we complete the repressurization of the cabin.
And just prior to we get to cabin venting, pure oxygen is going to start flowing to the crew's suits. That's when the EVA clock will start, so keep an eye on that. And this all gets followed by a suit leak check. We'll do the leak checks. Once those look good, Mission Control will start to vent the cabin, just removing the air in order to lower its pressure down until we can get to hatch opening.
Next, Dragon will use its Draco thrusters to reposition itself so that the trunk is facing the sun. This will help keep temperatures, communications, and spacecraft power stable during the spacewalk. At this point, the crew should be ready to open Dragon's hatch and exit the spacecraft.
After the hatch gets opened, EV1, that's Jared's call sign during the spacewalk, he's going to be the first to exit the spacecraft. He's going to go outside and he's going to do a series of mobility tests. These are kind of the core component of the spacewalk today. He's going to basically take the EVA suit through the paces. It's going to take about 15 minutes before he climbs back into Dragon.
After that, EV2, or Sarah, will step out into space to perform the same tests of her EVA suit before she then climbs back into Dragon. In addition to these suit mobility tests, Jared and Sarah will also evaluate Dragon's new Skywalker hardware. We'll talk more about that in just a bit.
Then after she's completed her test, Sarah will stand by near the hatch for the actual closing. And at this point, after the hatch is closed, the EVA is not over. The hatch door gets closed, and then the cabin has to be repressurized. We got to get all that atmosphere back inside. After we start introducing that atmosphere, we'll do cabin leak checks.
Once those leak checks are complete, the crew will return to their seats, and the EVA will be complete when the cabin pressure has returned to nominal. So, for now, the crew is suited up and awaiting final checkouts and EVA venting, which will bring in Dragon to vacuum. With everything on track, we're about 45 minutes or so from the start of the spacewalk.
And before we get there, though, we're going to expand the desk a little bit. We're happy to be joined by former NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins. We were fortunate to have him tune in with us during the launch, and now we've got him to talk to us a little bit about spacewalking today. Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's great to be back here in Hawthorne with you tonight on.
Yeah, so a couple things. We'll listen into to Mike here in just a second, but I did want to point out a couple things that, I was thinking about as they were explaining this, but they are, one of the riskier parts of this mission is that once they depressurize and then they open that hatch, like, it's on the astronauts to close the hatch, make sure it's a good seal, and repressurize. And a lot of times that happens on the ground, and also that can happen when they're docked to the space station. That can happen with astronauts they could do the leak check without necessarily having to go into vacuum, so they don't have to be in a space suit while they're doing leak checks when they're attached to the space station and they close the hatch, because the whole thing stays pressurized while they're attached to the space station. So the downside here, one of the riskier parts, is that it has to go to vacuum. They have to put their suits on, and they can't take the suits off until they verify that there are no leaks in the capsule. So a lot of time, I mean, not a lot of times, but sometimes the seals on the hatch, maybe gets a little piece of debris on it, or it's got a little something going on, and they have to clean it, and then they have to reseal it. And that's all relatively easy to do if you're somebody on the ground and you got to clean it, or you're in the space station and you can clean it. But now we've just added this element of complexity where if they have to clean it, they got to do so with their spacesuits on, and any sort of adjustments they have to make are with their spacesuits on. So it is kind of interesting. It does make it just a little bit riskier. I did see Time Flight asked, are they tethered? Yes, they are tethered. They have a tether to the vehicle the entire time, and that's actually what's providing them oxygen and cooling to their suits and communications, things like that. So they do have a tether. It's not just a simple like rope tether that's just holding them on. It's actually feeding them oxygen, cooling, communications, things like that. So they will be tethered to the vehicle. They're not just doing a free walk. They're actually, not only are they tethered, but they need the tether to breathe.
For the launch, we saw some of their videos of training, and I thought it was kind of fun to see them as trainees, and somebody else getting to test them all the time. So it was pretty neat to get to see that.
Switching it up a little bit, because we're starting to get some views back from Dragon. We've been treated to some pretty spectacular stuff as we were, all the way out to 1,400 kilometers. We like to talk about something called the overview effect. So kind of that first, and we're getting some comms from our crew too.
We don't hear them.
Yeah, I'm not.
SpaceX Dragon radio check.
Catch loud and clear, kid. Help me.
Catching loud and clear. Doffing continues, and last stowage is going to be the cabin mic.
Copy that, kid.
Make that Donnie.
I got nervous for a minute. He said doffing continues.
Some quick comm checks. We heard
Doffing means they're taking the suits off. He just misspoke. He meant donning, which means putting them on.
First comms down as we get ready for the spacewalk. But we're looking out the view. We're looking down at Earth, that overview effect. What's it like the first time you get to space, you get to look back? And I mean, you can see horizon to horizon, the whole Earth below you.
It's kind of funny, Dan, because the overview effect is definitely real. But when I first got to space on that Soyuz, gosh, how many years ago? Almost 9 years ago, I had this really weird feeling of falling. And so when I looked out that window the first time, I wasn't really thinking the big thoughts of an overview effect. I was kind of thinking, like, what is going on with my body right now? This feels really...
That's pretty, but oh no.
But again, fortunately, when you have time to be in space, you do have an opportunity to experience that, and it is definitely true. You'll hear people talking about that small sliver of atmosphere, and you see that, and that's what's keeping us alive. You see a world without borders. Which is incredible. But, one of the experiences of the overview effect that I had was that, that it gives you that sense of answers, but it also, for me, gave me a lot of questions and made me realize that there's a lot of this world I don't really know much about, the other parts, other countries, other societies, cultures, languages. And so sometimes it brought as many questions as it did answers.
Wow.
Hopefully a bunch more trips then, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Hey, our friend Marcus House checking in with us. Said this is such a fun event. I know this is exciting. It's cool to have like something new that's happening here in space flight that we just haven't seen before. So this is pretty exciting to see an EVA from Crew Dragon. Marcus might be one of the few viewers that is okay with the time of day that this is happening at, being in Australia. It's probably not It's got to be closer to the evening time for you, right? It's 5 o'clock in the morning for me, and I'm not a morning person by any means. But Marcus is probably perfectly fine with this timing. It's probably a relief for once for him, because everything usually happens during the day for me and in the middle of the night for him. Thanks for checking in, Marcus. 7:23 p.m. for him. Yeah, that's a pretty comfortable time. Not so much here. Everybody in the, you got Nina checking in at 11:23 a.m. Nina's in Germany. Everybody in outside of the U.S. here. Of course, I'm in the U.S., so what's that? Don't everybody here in the U.S. we just think about ourselves, something like that. It's never worried about you guys, what time of day it is for you. Just worried about what time it is for me. Just kidding. Kind of. Let's see. Oh, I can't turn that up because they have music playing. So, all right. While they have the music playing, we'll talk it up. I don't want to get a YouTube copyright strike, so we'll continue on. So, to give you an idea here, we'll go back and go back over what the expectations are, what they kind of covered in. I think I'm going to have to update my timeline a little bit. I think it might be like 5 minutes off or so based on what they said recently. It looks like it may be 5 minutes later than expected. I don't know. Maybe they were just rounding. But yeah, so the plan here is... Here we go. We're back to...
Seat 4 is next. Support 2 is next. And then EV 1 and 2 are shortly behind.
Copy on that crew status.
Getting a quick crew status from Kid. But yeah, I think I speak for a lot of SpaceXers. We really want to get up there and see that view, to feel that effect, to experience that. And
all right, so yeah, so going back just so that we can kind of recap a little bit here. So we're in suit donning. They're putting their suits on. There is no airlock, so they are going to once their suits are on, they're going to do some leak checks, make sure that all the suits are zipped and attached and all set for going down to vacuum. Then they have to depressurize the entire vehicle. All 4 of them will be in a vacuum and protected by their spacesuits. They will open the hatch. Only 2 of them are going to leave, Jared Isaacman and Sarah Gillis, and they will go on the spacewalk. They will be tethered. They're going to hang out in space, do some mobility tests. They'll come back in, seal the hatch, repressurize, and then once they do some capsule leak checks, they'll be able to take their suits off or doff their suits, and that'll be the end. It's going to be about a 2-hour timeline. This timeline that's above my head here right now, I have no idea if it's accurate. I might actually even go out on a limb and say that it's probably not accurate, because I kind of just took a guess at a lot of this stuff. So the only thing that's really accurate, or at least close to accurate, is going to be the actual ticking clock at the top. That should be pretty close. But we'll see. We'll probably have to update that as well. To give you an idea, the other thing too, that they do have some gauges.
Couple fans right here. You'll hear them run, but then we'll also be turning them off. No correction required.
Copy.
Actually, if I can, I'm just going to jump in on that.
Absolutely.
That's actually
They're doing some
call that was made. You heard him say we're going to turn on some fans, because when you're in space, you acclimate to the sounds around you of the vehicle, and when it changes, all of a sudden you're kind of looking around at what was that, and so you heard them give them a warning that we're going to turn on some fans, and so that they kind of knew what was going. So that's actually a great call from the ground there. But anyway, going back to those spacewalks where I was, outside, and what are your
it is kind of an interesting thing to think about. Is I imagine, so I'm a pilot. I fly an airplane, and you become. I imagine it's a similar feeling. Like I become very in tune with what the airplane sounds like and feels like while I'm flying. And if there's ever any sound, like even a vibration that's different or a sound that's different, you're always kind of like, ooh, what's that?
Our fan commanding is now complete.
Copy, we see soon.
All right. Hopefully no surprise sounds in there for him. So,
That's right.
I mean,
So yeah, it is an interesting thing to think about, and probably a good thing that they gave him a warning, because otherwise, you know, might surprise you a little bit.
you can run into when you're outside.
What was I was going to say something about this, but now I can't think about it. I can't remember what I was going to say. Well, we'll go to Tyree's question. What airplane do you fly? I fly a Piper Cherokee primarily, a PA-28, 180 horsepower. So it's a low-wing airplane, 4-seater. It's got 4 seats, but you can fit 4 people or full fuel, not both. It's, you know, pretty small. I call it my little go-kart in the air. It's fun. I like it, but it's small. Not a lot of room in there.
Here's what the settings are for these tools, and they're just walking you through the whole process. And so I think that's one of the neat things about spacewalks that maybe people don't realize is, you know, you focus on the people actually getting to go out and do the walk, but the team on the ground is such a huge part of that as well.
So on your 3rd, 4th subsequent EVAs, you know, these spacewalks, you train a lot for them beforehand, before you even get up in space. By the time you're on your 5th one, it must have been more like a cakewalk.
No, it never felt like a cakewalk at all. You know, because it is. You know, it is a risky endeavor, right? So every time you go out on the spacewalk, you're definitely very, very focused, and you never want to let your guard down with it. I will say you certainly are more comfortable with what's going on. You're more familiar, maybe is a better way to say that. But I think you can kind of trace it back to experiences down here on Earth. For me, a lot of times it's my sports background, so I'll equate a little bit of going out and playing a football game, right? Before every game, you're still nervous, right?
Yeah.
You're still got a lot of that energy. It was the same thing on my 5th spacewalk like it was on that first one. You know, you still have all of that kind of nervous energy as you're getting ready to go out.
Well, so right now we're still kind of waiting to get into some of the final preparations for this spacewalk. We should be coming up on seat rotation. I don't know if we missed it or not, but again, they're going to be rotating those seats to move them upright. That's just going to give the crew a little bit extra room to move around as we get into this. But for now, why don't we take a couple of moments and meet Dragon. Polaris Dawn is SpaceX's 14th.
All right. While they're doing this, just one thing I did want to point out. So we mentioned earlier about their altitude and their apogee. I don't remember. I didn't see the actual final altitude that they got up to. It was 700 and something, but we have now passed apogee, and we're on the downhill side heading towards perigee now. You'll see the altitude start to decrease as they head towards perigee, and the speed will actually increase as well. So we'll see that speed go up, the altitude comes down. The astronauts really aren't going to see it. They're not under acceleration so much that they're going to feel that. So yeah, they're still feeling like they're in free fall. Or 0G. So they're just something to keep an eye on. I don't know what altitude. It looks like, you know, we're going to drop below 600 kilometers in altitude. So they're probably going to be, you know, maybe 500 something kilometers in altitude when they do the spacewalk. I don't think they're really going to notice a difference between 500 kilometers and 700 kilometers when they're actually looking at it. I mean, maybe they do, but, you know, it seems like you're in space and you're pretty far away from the planet at, you know, whether you're at 500, 600, or 700 kilometers. So. It's a good question here by Sarah. So when the walk is over, does Dragon dock back to the ISS? No, this Dragon has no capability to dock to the ISS. And that's because in order to do this spacewalk, they had to put the Skywalker handholds and things like that. That's what we see sticking out of the vehicle. And in order to put all that in, they had to remove the docking ring from it. So this Dragon spacecraft does not dock to the International Space Station. It cannot dock to the International Space Station. There is no docking port. And that's another reason why this mission is pretty risky as a whole, is that there is no safe haven option to go to the International Space Station. Can't dock with the space station even if it wanted to, because there's no docking port. But also, the space station is out of phase for the vehicle, so there's not even enough fuel on board to actually get to the space station. So yeah, they're in a similar inclination. That's the only thing that's similar, is that the tilt that they're orbiting at is about the same tilt as the International Space Station, but they are not in the same phase right now and nowhere near the International Space Station. So yeah, they can't get there. The space station is not an option for them. There's no safe haven option to go to the space station. They can't go there in an emergency. If there's an emergency, they gotta come all the way back to planet Earth. So it is one of the reasons that this mission is a little bit risky. There's no their safe haven is the capsule, and the backup option is Earth. And that's it. So yeah, good question, Sarah. Hey, Sebby the Time Waster checking in. Tori, how are you? Coffee is probably your best friend right now. I have not had any coffee. I probably should have. I don't know. I haven't had any coffee because in my head I have it that I'm going to go back to sleep after this is over. So I didn't want to have coffee and then not be able to go to sleep afterwards. I think that's still the plan, although by the time I'm done, the sun's going to be up here and it's going to make it a lot harder to go to sleep. So I don't know. I might have coffee after this is over with.
Got it.
Quick comms there with SpaceX
Oh,
Core
missed those comms.
from the Dragon capsule. That was the crew just letting the folks here in mission control, letting us know that it's okay to turn the onboard cameras back on once we have coverage for those cameras.
Oh, there we go. That'll be cool.
Getting back to the different configurations that we have for the Dragon
Yeah, so
capsule,
they typically shut those onboard kit. We haven't seen the astronauts yet on this stream. I mean, we've seen them in some of the stuff that they did earlier today. I posted a couple of videos on Facebook and on YouTube. I don't think I posted the video of the astronauts on YouTube, but it is on Facebook. They did some events with like St. Jude's Children's Hospital, and so we've seen the astronauts in the capsule. We just haven't seen them in this stream right now. It's a good segue to remind everybody that
Crew 1.
Oh, I thought we had some comms. Good segue to remind everybody that this mission is a fundraiser for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. And I am also participating and collaborating in that fundraiser. So if you're watching over on YouTube, there is a St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital fundraiser attached to this live stream. Of course, any donation you make, 100% of that goes directly to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And so the Polaris Dawn mission is doing some really cool things, but they also have a really cool secondary mission, which is raising money for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So consider making a donation if you feel so inclined and you have the means to do so. It would, goes to a great cause and helps you feel part of the Polaris Dawn mission. Sarah says, sounds scary if something goes wrong. Yeah, it's definitely a risky mission for sure. Time Waster, I doubt they would have the Delta V to go to the ISS in the first place. I think at launch they would have the Delta V to get the ISS, but at this point they don't have the Delta V to get to the ISS because they're not in phase with the ISS. So yeah, it would be way too much fuel to get to the ISS. Even if they had a docking port, they don't have the fuel on board to get to the ISS from this orbit. So in this mission, they can't deorbitate. Well, deorbitate. Actually, they would have to deorbitate if there was an emergency. They just can't. They can't orbitate. Is that what we're gonna call it? They can't orbitate themselves over to the space station. The only option they have is deorbitate. Is that?
also pretty impressive.
I actually have that noted.
There we go. Glenn says I donate every month, the greatest cause ever, to St. Jude's. Wow, that's awesome, Glenn.
That's incredible. 'Cause we landed in May.
It is a very good cause. The other thing you can do, if maybe I don't know, some people don't feel comfortable donating or things like that. Something that's really cool that maybe you missed out on is, or you haven't missed out on, but maybe you didn't notice. But over on SpaceX's website in the store, you can purchase a SpaceX shirt and or the SpaceX Zero or the Polaris Dawn 0G indicator, the little dog called Asteroid. I have purchased both of those, and according to their website, all the proceeds from any purchase the swag purchases there, all the proceeds are going to St. Jude's as well. So if maybe donating isn't your thing, but you want to have a little 0G indicator, you can go to the SpaceX website. In their store, you can buy yourself the 0G indicator or a shirt. They got some other cool stuff. I was very tempted to buy. They got a little astronaut model kind of thing. It's like $300, but I was really tempted to buy it. I held off. I did not buy it, but I may change my mind on that too. I feel like that would look really good in the back of my set here with that little astronaut sitting on there. So I may go back and change my mind on that.
Also ran through numerous simulations of what the full mission would look like while they were seated inside of our Dragon trainer.
In addition to ensuring that they're familiar with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, the crew went through an extensive training regimen to build their physical endurance and mental toughness, ensuring that they are well-rounded and prepared for spaceflight and today's EVA.
Now, switching gears, one of the coolest things, designed in-house by SpaceX, the EVA suit has all the functions of our original spacesuit with the added bonus of allowing astronauts to exit the spacecraft while in orbit.
And this mission...
Oh, geez. Gosh, that scared me.
...gives us a great opportunity to test our EVA suits in space.
I don't know what that was.
Building a base on the moon and a city on Mars will require thousands of spacesuits, so the development of this suit and the EVA performed on this mission will be important steps toward a scalable design for spacesuits on future long-duration missions.
As we mentioned, SpaceX designs and manufactures our own suits, and we have a little behind-the-scenes look for you, something most people don't get to see, the inside of our very own suit lab.
Yep. All right, and they got some music here. So we can we can take in the views, we just can't take in the audio of their suit lab there. I do think it's pretty amazing. I mentioned this on the launch live stream. I think it's pretty amazing that they were able to design the suit to be almost identical looking to the IVA suit, right? So EVA suits are typically a lot bulkier. I mean, this suit, if you look closely, it is bulkier than the IVA suit, the one they normally wear for crewed missions to the space station. So it is a little bit bulkier, but at first glance, if you just kind of glance at it, like, it looks identical. It's kind of crazy that they made it look identical. Like, it doesn't look like a typical EVA suit. It doesn't look like the big, bulky EVA suit that you would expect to see. So I do think that's pretty remarkable. Missing Seattle. Are we still on for walk in 18 minutes? I don't know. I'm not sure. They're supposed to start the spacewalk in about 16 minutes or so. I would say, so the timing there, it was very unclear to me what the timing was. At this point, they've not depressurized the vehicle yet. They've not opened the hatch. So I don't expect them to leave the vehicle in 15 minutes, which is kind of what my timeline was. So the timeline is going to be all messed up. We'll have to edit this here. But they might start the EVA process. I mean, I think officially the EVA begins when they start flowing oxygen into the spacesuits, and they're basically, the astronauts are surviving on the suits themselves internally. So the EVA doesn't technically begin when they leave the spacecraft. It's going to begin when they're living off of their suits. And that might happen in about 15 minutes. Don't know the answer to that, but they're not going to, I don't expect them to leave the capsule in 15 minutes because it's probably going to take them a while to do some leak checks on the suits. They will need to depressurize. They're going to do that pretty slowly. Like you're not going to just vent it all in 4 seconds and be like, and then be ready to go. They're going to vent that off pretty slowly. And then also make sure that their suits are good. They're not leaking. There's nothing they have to abort and go back to pressurized cabins for. So yeah, and then here we actually see the little bit of heads-up display. There's some sensor information. They do have a heads-up display inside their helmets, so they can see some information as well, some sensor information about temperatures and oxygen flow, things like that. So yeah, some pretty cool stuff with this EVA. All right, let's go back to my comments. Yeah, Time Waster says, I wonder how it feels to breathe pure oxygen. Must be weird because the only thing making you breathe out is your own CO2, not a lack of oxygen. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Obviously, I've never done that, so I don't know if it does feel any different or you just breathe naturally and, you're good to go. I mean, even scuba divers, like, they technically breathe an air mix of oxygen and nitrogen. So, yeah, being under pure oxygen, it's usually a little bit different. And I don't know if anybody knows the pressure of their spacesuits. A lot of times, what our air pressure around us is like 14.6 psi or something like that. 14.6, 14.9, can't remember. It's 6 or 9. But anyways, I think it's like 14.6 psi is sea level temperature or pressure. And then when you're in this, like a NASA EVA spacesuit, they only pressurize it technically to 5 psi for a couple of reasons. One, it's a pure oxygen environment, so you don't really need, when you're breathing, you don't really need that much pressure. But two, if they pressurize the suits too much and bring it all the way up to 14.6 psi, that then the suits would be too stiff. They'd be like, not be able to walk or move around at all. So they keep the internal pressure of the suit pretty low so that they have the mobility. The suit still bends and the arms still bend and the legs still bend and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it'll be, I don't know what the actual internal pressure is of these EVA suits, but I imagine it's similar. It's probably, 4.5 to 5 psi, somewhere in that range, internal to the suit. That way the suit itself retains its mobility. So yeah, that'll be interesting as well. Sarah's got the toilet question. Everybody's always curious about bathroom facilities in space. Gotta ask, how do they go to the toilet with that suit on? Because naturally they're going to be nervous on their first walk. Yeah, so a couple things. I mean, one, they probably went to the bathroom before they started this whole process. It's probably one of the reasons why they don't show us camera views when they're donning and doffing their suits. But also, there's a good chance, especially timing on this, like, there's a good chance that they may have the old astronaut diapers going on for that purpose. Because in this sort of scenario, right, something could, if something does go wrong, right, it's supposed to be about 2 hours, but if something does go wrong, they could have extended periods of time with those suits on. So that's where I imagine they might be rocking some astronaut diapers underneath there for just that scenario. So hopefully nothing goes wrong, but you do have to plan. I mean, they can live off those suits for a while. I mean, you don't want to stay like that for days, but they could extend it for a couple hours and continue to live off the suits if they have to troubleshoot something or fix a seal or clean a seal or reseal the hatch 2 or 3 times, but yeah, that's where the astronaut diapers might come in handy if they have to extend that a little bit. Astronaut diapers should be a product you can buy. I think you can buy it. I think it's called Depends. Right there, missing Seattle. Definitely have the Depends on. Yep.
For that is because if it doesn't fit right, it can be extremely uncomfortable. You can get what you call hot spots, or there can be a place where a crease, when it gets pressurized, can really put a hard point on your arm or something of that nature. So having a good suit fit check is extremely important. And it's one of the things that was kind of fun as well, because you get to spend a lot of time with the suit team here with Chris and Eric
They're
and Maria.
a great crew.
Oh,
they're so good.
They're fantastic. And I mean, just over the years, they've gained so much experience, and they can really help you hone in on what the really good fitting suit is like, with just the way they ask the questions and lead you through that process.
Wow.
What are kind of the sensational differences from being in like the IVA suit? Because a lot of times the IVA suit, when it gets pressurized, it fills up, but you're still in like a pressured environment. With EVA suit, you're in the vacuum.
Right.
And so like what's it kind of like?
Yeah, so that IVA suit, it has a different purpose, right? And that the purpose of that IVA suit is to keep us alive in the event of some type of an emergency that might happen during a launch or a landing. And so that's that case where either you have a fire or you have a depress event, and so that suit's going to pressurize. And so in that case, we're not as worried about like the mobility of the suit. You just want to get home and do it in a safe way. And so you need to have enough mobility to still be able to control the spacecraft and do the things you need to do, but you're just not as worried about it because you're not trying to perform a maintenance activity or something like that when you're going out on a spacewalk. And so I think that's one of the biggest differences between the IVA suit and the EVA suit, is just what the purpose of it is and what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, that feedback loop is so important to be able to communicate what feels good, what doesn't, because I imagine, as you're out there and having to perform, as you mentioned, maintenance activities, among other things, that the functionality of your body is critical to perform those.
It really is, and probably one of the hardest, I think, parts of the suit to design is the gloves. Right, because
absolutely,
you hear us use the term "it fits like a glove," right? We use that a lot, but you don't realize how much you use your hands when you're outside on a spacewalk, as opposed to say your feet when you're, because in space we don't use our feet or our legs as much as we do our hands, and so when you're in a pressurized suit like that, and you're constantly grabbing and reaching, you are overcoming the pressure of the suit, and your hands can get just exhausted. And you can get those hot spots. I had some issues with my EMU gloves when I first started training at NASA, and I would actually get what's called delamination on my fingernails.
Ouch.
And so there's just little things like that it really matters how well that suit fits and how well it functions. And so you don't realize how important that is sometimes.
Yeah. Now we are going to be.
I was like partially. I'm trying to update the timeline. I was like partially
can
listening
you
to
share
that,
with us
but
a little bit about what that process entails, and more importantly, because you've actually experienced what it feels like to go through suit leak checks, what that experience is like.
Extremely important part of the whole process, right? Because before you take the cabin, in this case, all the way down to vacuum, you want to make sure that your suit is maintaining the pressure that it needs to. And so it's not a very long process. It's usually just a few minutes to 2 or 3 minutes. And the interesting part is, if you don't pass that leak check, what do you do next? And so there's always usually procedures associated with that as well, that start checking your zippers, start checking how you've closed things up. Did you not get something sealed quite right? And so it's always a good point in the mission when whether it's on the launch pad getting ready, whether it's in the airlock getting ready to go out the door, when you hear that, good leak check, because now you know that you're ready to go.
So today's going to be kind of unique because all 4 of our crew members are going to be doing the spacewalk. They're all going to be exposed to the vacuum of space. But I mean, even when you did spacewalks, it's never a solo act, right? Like you're always out there with a partner.
You are. It's extremely important. In fact, one of the hardest parts about our training for spacewalks is what we call incapacitated crew. And so you need to always be able to get your crewmate back into the airlock if something should happen, if they should no longer be conscious and something of that nature. And so we actually do spend quite a bit of time, and that's why it's extremely important for us to go out in pairs, because things can go wrong, and so you want to be prepared for those moments.
Yeah. That's a great point, Dan, to make that while only Jared and Sarah are going to be somewhat exiting the spacecraft, all 4 crew members are going to be exposed to the vacuum of space, and it's actually going to set a new record for most number of people exposed to, or not them without a suit, but like, in the vacuum of gravity all at the same time. Yeah,
that's actually interesting. I never actually thought of that piece of this mission, and the fact that you're going to have 4 people on a spacewalk. I know at one point on a shuttle mission, we had three folks outside on a spacewalk. And so, yeah, that's a big deal and kind of exciting. You know, one of the things we do on the space station, of course, is we have astronauts that are still inside, and if we do get into those emergency situations, they're there prepared to help us get back into the airlock and get unsuited and things of that nature. So, of course, when you have all the crew, it just makes you think about those emergency situations probably in a little bit different way than we do on station.
Yeah. And hey, if you're just tuning in, we are still waiting to really kick off our spacewalk today. So right now the crew is inside the spacecraft. They're getting suited up. We should be hearing some comms from them pretty soon. And then
SpaceX Dragon EV1 is completing glove zipper closures, but at this time we are ready for seat rotation.
Copy that for seat rotation. Can you confirm crew is ready with the current glove zipper ops?
Sounds like we're getting pretty close to the start of oxygen flow.
All right, I guess they just needed me to say it was coming soon, and then there it is. But we are going to hear the seat rotation coming up soon. Again, they're in the recline position.
And I'll do standby well to get them to the seat.
Copy. Standing by.
So they're going
to get those seats rotated, and then we're pretty much going to be ready to start getting into things. And our EVA is going to officially start when we start flowing O2 into those suits. And so that'll kind of start our clock. We're going to be showing you some of the telemetry. So all those numbers at the bottom of your screen, you've got a couple right now. That one all the way in the bottom left corner, that's your Dragon. That's your Dragon cabin pressure. That's in PSI.
SpaceX Dragon, you're ready for seat rotation.
SpaceX copies. Initiating seat rotation.
There we go. So these seats are going to go more upright to give them a little bit of space to maneuver.
Room to move around during the spacewalk. And after we get through the seat rotation, we'll be able to perform those suit leak checks that we were just talking about.
Yeah, before they do that, they'll do what's called a tear. So it's kind of like if you're ever using a scale, you zero out the scale before you put something on it. That's essentially what we're doing with the suits. They'll get like a baseline reading, and then as we start to actually pressurize the suits, we'll be able to measure that against the baseline, make sure everybody's got basically a nice seal before we start that vent.
Yeah, that one's pretty important.
That was pretty important. Yeah, so a lot of that's coming up. Again, some of the data on your screen, you've got cabin pressure, you've got suit pressure.
Dragon SpaceX, seat rotation complete and nominal.
Oh, so we can actually see suit pressures here now, too.
Seat rotation's complete, so now they're going to start doing that tear, getting ready.
Dragon, copy, do you see the phone?
Copy, and can I get a confirmation of completion per the call out in 2.18?
So I don't know.
H1 SpaceX complete with 2.18.
Copy. At this time, you are go to step into section 3 and tear suit deucers.
Copy. Everyone through it.
Just a quick reminder, in case if you missed the top of the show, we're going to be referring to the crew a little differently for the EVA activity than we were previously. So we heard Anna talk EV1. That was referring to Jared. So basically his call sign for this spacewalk operation is EV1. Sarah's call sign will be EV2. Anna will be support 2, and Scott will be support 1. Also, Scott and Sarah are switching seats. Perhaps they already have. Yeah.
Copy. Standby for HUD power for pressure sensor checkouts.
Okay, so our suit tear completed. So next up is going to be the HUD checkout. So the HUD, your heads-up display.
Very excited about this.
Really excited about this. And Mike, I'd love to kind of get your perspective on this real quick. We do have on your screen, though, that's your seat order. So you've got EV1. Jared is in that seat. He's going to be in that seat right now, but once we actually get ready to open the hatch and everything, he's going to be positioned kind of over by the hatch. And then Sarah, EV2, is going to be in one of those center seats. Then you'll have Anna and Kid on either side.
Dragon SpaceX, suit HUD's powered. Report results of primary sensor HUD checks in 3.2.
This is so exciting.
So again, that's our seat layout. We just heard the HUDs are powered on, so they've got heads-up displays actually being kind of projected on their visor in their helmet, which if you've ever seen spacesuits, that's always kind of felt like that's that space age technology that we're missing. Because Mike, you use kind of a simpler but a little unorthodox way to see like.
So while we're waiting for some more action here, let's grab another question here from.
And SpaceX HUD checkout complete and nominal.
Nice.
Copy. Swapping the backup sensors. Stand by to repeat HUD checks.
So, of course, the suits that we use.
So they're doing some checks on their heads-up display. The heads-up display has some sensor information about their suits, airflow. Oh, here we go.
Oh, look, it's our first live views inside Dragon Resilience for this morning.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
I think this is the definition of chillin'.
Yeah.
So they're out of his seat. That's Commander Jared, who, like I mentioned before, will be referred to as EV1. Behind him, we can see already in his new seat, pilot Scott Kidd Poteet. He will be support 1. And then moving around in front of us is Sarah, who will be EV2. And then just out of view underneath the camera, but I think you can see her visor, is Anna Menon, who is support 2.
Dragon SpaceX, we're on backup sensors. Repeat HUD checks.
So you can see the tether
We're going to check out
on his
heads-up
right leg there.
displays one more time real quick.
SpaceX HUD checkouts on backup sensors all nominal.
Copy. Good HUDs. Returning to primary. Stand by for helmet camera checkouts.
And their visors are up right now, so the vehicle's still pressurized.
On the heads-up display, they'll be able to see the O2 flow timer. That's kind of like our mission clock, essentially. Like once the O2 has started to flow to their seats, and they know they've got about an hour and 50 minutes, just under 2 hours for the whole time. They'll be able to see their suit pressure, temperature. Basically, it's a way to kind of keep an eye on things. And we were talking about it a little bit, Mike, but on the EMU is a little bit different.
Yeah, the EMU is certainly different. A lot of that kind of information is on a display right in front of you that you have to kind of look down to see, and it can be pretty challenging to see. In fact, a lot of the information...
So while they're talking about the NASA EMU, I did want to address this question here from FK Knows One, or F Knows One. Says, why is there altitude dropping? If you notice in the bottom right-hand corner, we've got the capsule speed and altitude. The altitude is dropping because they're in an oval-shaped orbit where the closest approach to Earth is about 190 kilometers. That's known as perigee. And then the long side of that oval is...
We're going to get the helmet cams powered on.
The long side of the oval, their furthest point away from Earth,
Yeah, pretty excited for these. We've
I keep
seen
missing
them
the comms.
utilized during
Furthest point away from Earth, known as apogee, is at about 700. I think it was a little over 700 kilometers. So they will constantly. They're going far away from Earth to 700 kilometers, and then as they come back on the other side of the oval, they get close to Earth at 190 kilometers, and then they go far out again, and then they come back, and then they go far out, and then they come back. So right now, I think we just passed perigee, actually.
Cameras powered. Confirm good health.
So it really allows your ground teams to kind of be able to see what you're doing and
SpaceX is pretty good video on both speeds, no fault.
almost double check your work.
Copy. Checkout's complete. HUDs will remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3, operations review through 3.8, report when complete.
All right, so they're doing some checkouts there. So yeah, we just passed perigee, which is their lowest, their closest approach to Earth. So now and you'll also notice that at perigee, the speed is higher. So the altitude comes down, the speed goes up. And now we've passed perigee. We're heading to apogee, going back to that furthest point away. So you'll see the altitude go up and the speed come down. That's because when you're at apogee, your relative speed in orbit is slower. When you're at perigee,
HUDs are going to remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3, operations review through 3.8, and report when complete.
we heard that already. Maybe they didn't hear it.
Copy, and work.
There we go. So yeah, at apogee, your speed is the slowest, and at perigee, your speed is the highest. So yeah, that's what's going on. Time waster. It always amazes me how small this capsule is, but compared to a Soyuz, it is still gigantic. Yeah, a lot of, at least if you're living in it for 5 days, it's kind of small feeling. At least it looks small feeling. But yeah, if you're used to the Soyuz is very crowded. You are packed right in there. The Soyuz does have like an orbital module though that has a little bit more room. But the actual capsule itself, when you're in there, like you are in there tight. So yeah, a couple things to keep an eye on here. We can see Kid Poteet and Anna Menon, the two support personnel that are on the outer seats. We can't see Anna. We can kind of see Anna's visor on the very bottom left-hand corner. But Anna and Kid Poteet, Kid is all the way at the far end. They will actually be strapped into the seats. Jared Isaacman, who's the only one that's not in a seat right now, he's considered he's considered EV1. He'll be the one opening the hatch. He is tethered. You can see the tether going to his right leg. And then Sarah Gillis is EV2. We can see Sarah pretty well. She's the one that's waving her hand around a little bit. She'll be EV2, and only those two will leave the capsule. The other two, Kid Poteet and Anna Menon, will remain strapped in. And then we talked about some of the sensors that we're seeing as well. In the bottom of the screen, we've got the Dragon capsule pressurization. We've got the suit pressurization. We've got the capsule speed and the capsule altitude. So that'll be kind of cool that they're sharing all this data with us as well. So right now their visors are open, so we're not flowing oxygen yet. The EVA hasn't technically started yet. So it'll be about a 2-hour process once it starts, but it is not yet started. Are they tethered to the seats? I don't think they're actually, well, they do have oxygen supplies to the seats, but they don't have that big long tether to the seats. So I guess technically you could say that they're tethered to the seats because they do have to connect to the seats for oxygen and communications and things like that. So yeah, technically they're attached, but I wouldn't call it a tether like you would typically think about. For the most part, they're kind of just strapped in? That was a question. I should have put that on the screen from Cheshire Cat. Are they tethered to the seats? There's another question about the bathroom. Jim asks, is the bathroom working? I don't know why bathroom is in quotes. But yeah, as far as we know, the bathroom's working. The bathroom is in a seal. You can kind of see it right up here is where the bathroom is. I think. I think it's up here above right above the hatch.
EVA off review complete. Crew are in position for EVA start.
Nice.
Cool.
Excellent news.
Copies, crew in position.
Crew in position for EVA start, they said.
Saw Sarah kind of move the tether out of the way, and the part of that is that's actually impacting Jared.
SpaceX, you are go to command box triggered push to talk, all seats.
Copy, and more.
So this'll be one of the unique things about the spacewalk today. It'll feel familiar if you watch some of Mike's spacewalks. The crew is going to go over to what's called Vox.
Push to talk is set. Go for com check.
EV1, com check.
EV2, com check.
Support 1, com check.
Support 2, com check.
Oh, they're on Vox now.
SpaceX copies all, good comms, all 4 crew. SpaceX copies all, good comms, all 4 crew.
So essentially now all of our crew are on open mics. They can all talk and hear each other, and they can talk to the ground. And so you're going to hear a lot more chatter start to pick up. Once we start the suit pressurization, you're going to hear almost like a sound. That's just the air starting to flow into their suits. How loud does it get inside your suit?
It actually is quite loud. That airflow is just constantly, which is a good thing, right? Because not only is it providing you the oxygen, but it's also helping get rid of that CO2 that you're breathing out. So you want that airflow to be constantly going, and so you always are hearing that fan that's making that happen. And so that is certainly pretty important. And the Vox thing, I got to say, it's nice that you don't have to push a button when you're outside there to talk.
Dragon SpaceX, we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation.
Got some fist bumps going on.
Yeah.
And we just heard we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation, so we should see them get the go to close their visors, and then they're going to open up one of the O2 valves on their suits to start the suit purge, and that's going to be the official start of our spacewalk today. So we'll get through the final goes, and then we'll see those visors get closed, oxygen start flowing, and we'll be off.
Here we go, 90 seconds. It's pretty cool that they're going on Vox. So for those that don't know, when you're on Vox, it's basically...
I love how everyone looks.
It's basically like an open mic. Everything they say will get transmitted, and we'll probably hear everything, as opposed to being on push to talk. You actually got to push the button and say something, and we only hear what they say when they push the button. But when you're on Vox, open mic, we're going to hear everything.
Right now, right? Because one of the hardest parts I always found about...
Dragon SpaceX. SpaceX is go for spacewalk operations. Report visors down, ready for secondary O2 flow initiation, and crew is go for spacewalk.
Verify your visors are closed. Secondary O2 valve is open.
This is so exciting now. Look at all the people watching.
And that you are go for the EVA.
EV1 is go.
EV2 is go.
Support 1 is go.
Support 2 is go.
Dragon SpaceX initiating secondary O2.
And with that news, our EVA has begun.
So you're going to hear it referred to as primary and secondary O2. Primary is going to be that primary flow of oxygen to pressurize. Secondary is largely putting oxygen into their suits to help with cooling, but secondary is the first one we turn on. And so our O2 flow timer has started. The EVAs start at 3:12 a.m. Pacific. I'll do the math on UTC in a little bit.
The clock is running.
This first operation, or this first step in the operation, is a suit purge. So inside their suit, obviously when the visor is still open, it's still a nitrox environment. It's the same as the cabin. And since they're going to be at a lower pressure than what you can basically live at with oxygen levels, they're going to be on pure O2. They're going to be a 100% oxygen environment. And I mean, you guys were kind of in the same thing. And it's because like your suit, you can't move a suit around at 14.7 psi, can you?
No,
maybe you can, but like
no, that'd be pretty tough to do. And as we had talked about earlier, that's why that mobility is so important, because when that suit is pressurized like that, it can be challenging to move around.
Absolutely. So here on your screen, we can see the Polaris Dawn.
Time Waster wants to know, why are they calling out Pacific time? Is a capsule on Pacific? I would imagine so. This is because it's a SpaceX crew. And it's SpaceX Mission Control, which is in Hawthorne, California. They're probably operating, the two times that they probably operate on are either UTC or Pacific time. There's really no, like, when you're a NASA astronaut, they operate a lot on Central time because that's where Houston is located. But remember, it's not a NASA mission, so we're not operating off of Houston time. So really, it's either UTC or Pacific time for them, because that's where SpaceX Mission Control is in Hawthorne, California. So missing Seattle, everything now will happen in the next 2 hours. So yeah, we're expected, the EVA clock is expected to be about 2 hours. So they've started the EVA process. They've started the oxygen flow. Visors are down and closed. They're now living off of the suits. They have not started depressurizing the cabin yet. But yeah, they've started flowing oxygen, and now they're living off the suits, and we'll probably get into cabin depressurization here soon. Does the whole Dragon capsule get depressurized? Yes, it does. There is no airlock. That's why all
EV1, EV2 will need to adjust VOX threshold low following primary O2 flow initiation.
EV1 copies. EV2 copies.
So they're just telling them to set their VOX sensitivity threshold.
Dragon SpaceX, secondary flow purge complete. Close secondary O2 valves and report ready for suit pressurization.
EV1 closed. EV2 closed.
Port 1 closed.
Port 2 closed. SpaceX Dragon is ready for suit pressurization.
Initiating primary O2.
There you go. You can hear that oxygen flow.
This is normal. This is with the airflow coming through. The crew members are on VOX, meaning that their microphone is on the whole time. So Sarah and Jared are going to be adjusting their audio levels as this flow continues to help regulate that.
Yeah, the VOX will kind of attenuate, so it'll sound like this now, but as we get through the spacewalk, it'll kind of come down, and you'll just hear voices a little bit more clearly. Their voices are actually going to change too. Like, did that happen to you? Did that throw you, Mike, the first time you heard that?
It absolutely did. Yeah, because you're talking and you're going, who is that? Right? 'Cause you don't realize how much different it can sound.
Yeah.
Your voice can sound in that lower pressure environment.
Yeah. Speaking of lower pressure, we can see the pressure changing there with the telemetry in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. So we can see that suit pressure going up, and we're able to keep tabs there. As well with the Dragon pressure. So Dragon on the far left circle, that's the pressure within the cabin, and then suit, obviously that's the pressure within the suits. So we'll actually be able to, and I think we've kind of been able to see it already, that these suits will inflate a little bit, look a little different. And we were talking about the visors before, so when they're in the sunlight, that coating will help keep them cool and not overheat them. And then when they're in shadow, it'll help keep them warm. So,
and it's also like your sunglasses as well.
Yeah.
Right? It serves that purpose.
All right, so let me grab some of these questions again. We said, does the whole Dragon capsule get depressurized? Yes. Basically, everybody's on the spacewalk. Even though 2 of the astronauts are leaving the capsule, 2 of them are going to stay in. But technically, everybody's on the spacewalk here because there's no airlock. So the entire cabin will get depressurized. They haven't started that yet, but the entire cabin gets depressurized. It'll bring it right down to a vacuum. They'll open the hatch, 2 of them leave, they do their spacewalk, they'll come back, they close the hatch, then they'll repressurize the entire thing. So yes, the entire vehicle gets depressurized. Time waster, giving a good reminder to everybody. Don't forget to subscribe and like and do the YouTube thing.
Secondary flow on, report when complete.
EV1 open. Support 1 open. Support 2 open.
Can barely hear them because we can hear. So they have open mics right now. They're on Vox, open mics. But they did say that later on in the process, they will. They're going to lower the sensitivity of the Vox mics, so we'll probably not hear quite as much fan noise in a little bit. Here's a good question from Sarah. Why does the Dragon look so slow despite it going 25,000 kilometers per hour? It's really just all about relative speed, right? It's the same concept. If you're driving in a car and you look at trees that are in the way off in the distance, those trees way in the distance look like they're moving by slowly, even if you're driving 70 miles an hour or whatever the kilometers per hour equivalent of that is. But if you look at something that's really close to you, looks like it's whizzing by because you're going fast. You just, when you have that relative distance is small, things look a whole lot faster. Also, interestingly, I talked about me being a pilot. You get the same kind of sense with clouds when you're flying in an airplane. So if you fly in an airplane, like even in an airplane, like my airplane flies at like 150 miles an hour over the ground. It feels, I just went flying with somebody recently and we went flying for 3 hours and went out to Rhode Island. And it normally would take me 6 hours to drive to Rhode Island. Only took me 2 hours to fly there. But as we were flying there, the person I was flying with was like, this feels like the slowest method of transportation, but I know we're going 150 miles an hour. And it just feels so, the ground is so far away. It looks like you're just crawling along the ground, even though you're going 150 miles an hour. And it wasn't until I was flying IFR, so I was flying through the clouds, but we would approach a cloud or we would go past the cloud or something and it would be really close to us. And then all of a sudden the cloud would just be like, wow. Then all of a sudden you're like, wow, we are moving fast. But if you're just looking at the ground, you could barely even tell.
Within the suits, so we're trying to stay quiet to, along with you, listen in on what the crew comms are as they go through. We're also going to get views in and out, as we mentioned before, due to ground station coverage.
And it is a little bit tough to hear. We just heard, though, that we got 4 good leak checks on their suits, and now they're going to be in this final suited pre-breathe. And so again, this is going to last about 19 or so minutes, and this is just to do kind of that final, get all of the excess nitrogen out. And we started pre-breathe just two hours after they got on orbit, just by gradually lowering the pressure. And I mean, pre-breathe, that's something that kind of evolved over time with the space station. Where were you when you were doing your spacewalks?
Yeah, so we were past the kind of the camp out phase of pre-breathe. But that's how we used to do it. And it's very similar to what the Polaris Dawn crew has been doing over the last couple of days. We'd actually have astronauts stay inside the crew lock overnight at a lower pressure, just like they did when they first got on orbit. Now we've moved on to, we do it the day of. It still is a long day. We start about 6 hours prior to going out the door, but it's not 2 days prior.
It's worth noting along the lines of training and how the crew prepared for this mission that all 4 of our Polaris Dawn crew members and some additional Polaris and SpaceX crew members actually went into a vacuum chamber and tested these suits out and spent a bit of time at lower pressure just to help learn what that feels like and get used to it.
Well, and I think the other thing that's important about that is it's real, right? It's the first time that you're in that suit and it's actually a vacuum around you, right? And there's just something mentally that I think is important to put people through those moments before you actually have to experience the first time in space.
Yep.
We saw some of the unique ways we trained the crew for this.
Yeah, so just talking more about that relative speed here. Glenn says when you're flying on a clear day, it literally looks and feels like you're sitting. It gets cut off here and thing, but looks like you're sitting still. It does. Like when you're kind of far away from the ground, even if you're flying pretty fast, looks like you're just barely moving.
Not in the suit, but for diving, but you can hear the comms of everything that's going on through the water like that, and it just gives me goosebumps to think about that. It was a really neat environment, but it looks like these guys had a pretty neat way to train as well with the harness that would hoist them up and out and all of that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we definitely created some rigorous new training for the best we could simulate an EVA while still on Earth with hoists and it was a lot of fun to watch them train.
Yeah. Back on board with cameras in 3 minutes.
So our core just called up. We'll get views back on board in about 3 minutes. As Kate talked about earlier, we're using ground stations for our video coverage. All of our communication with the astronauts are through TDRS, so tracking and data relay satellites. So we'll have constant audio, but that video, we need those ground stations. But right now they're in that pre-breathe. That final pre-breathe still. We started our spacewalk about 13 minutes ago. We initiated O2 flow to the suits. That time was 3:12 a.m. Pacific, 10:12 UTC. I did some quick math. Took me 13 minutes to do it, but I did it. So once they're through this pre-breathe, we're going to start getting into some really exciting parts of the spacewalk. And then after we get through the pre-breathe, we're going to get to cabin vents. So, what's go through your head when you're like, man?
I wasn't expecting. I knew that we would hear these fan sounds, but I wasn't expecting it to be quite this loud.
It is a long process to get to this point, right? They've been prepping for this for 2 days, right? And one of the hardest things I found about the spacewalks is the waiting.
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait, right? You are so ready to go out and to do this mission and to go out that hatch, and it just takes time. And I think that's one of the things you talked about, my 5th versus my 1st. Your 5th, you kind of understand how long it's going to take. You have a better appreciation for how long it's going to take. And so you literally find yourself in these moments when you're kind of waiting through this pre-breathe or you're waiting for the airlock to depressurize. You just kind of find yourself just floating there, kind of zoning out, trying to keep yourself calm and relaxed and until that moment when it's game time.
Yeah. Now, just a quick mention, we're about a minute out until we get those views back inside the cabin. The view that we had previously was our Dragon tracker, which if you want to see where Dragon is, you can actually look that up as well. We have it on our website, spacex.com/follow-dragon. But yeah, just as a reminder, our crew They are in their designated, or well, Jared's not, but
He's floating.
our crew members, basically Sarah and Kid, have switched their seats for the EVA. Last time we were able to see inside the cabin, we saw Jared awaiting to open the hatch. So he wasn't in his commander seat, but Sarah is now sitting in Scott's pilot seat, also known as seat 3. And then Anna is on the far left side, and Scott is on the, oh yeah, we can see it there, on the far right side. And also just a reminder, their call signs for these EVA operations, Anna being support 2, Kid being support 1, and then Sarah being EV2 and Jared EV1, representing that Jared will exit first, do his activities, which include just some mobility testing of the suit, and then Sarah will go out and perform the exact same testing once Jared comes in. Meanwhile, Kid and Anna will function as the eyes and ears. They will be performing their own list of operations during, or their own list of tasks during the EVA. So while Sarah and Jared are going to be the ones that are, partially egressing the capsule once that forward door is open, Kid and Anna will also be performing an EVA in their own right.
That's right. And we talked about it earlier, first time 4 people exposed to the vacuum of space. Like there's a lot of firsts in this. That's going to be a really cool first, not just for us and Dragon. But we are going to be getting views back really soon. We're, again, just in that final pre-breathe step right now. And then we're going to start venting Dragon down to near vacuum. So we're going to have a couple of different valves that are going to open up, and the atmosphere inside Dragon is going to start going overboard out into the vacuum of space. Now, the crew, the ground, they can control, they can pause that cabin venting if they need to. We can pause and resume. The most likely reason is for ear equalization, is again, you're going through a lot of pressure changes anytime you do a spacewalk. And so if you've ever flown on an airplane and your ears popped, you've experienced just a little bit of what they might be going through right now. Once we start cabin venting, if we terminate or abort the spacewalk during that venting, we cannot start again. We talked a little bit earlier about how consumables are like the thing that really drives you. And for us, we don't have a great big airlock with this, with a full station's worth of oxygen and stuff like that. So
Suited pre-brief complete. Confirm crew rest for venting at pre-brief complete.
EV1 go. Forward go. Support keep down.
Copy, initiating cabin venting.
There we go.
That is great.
Here we go. We're starting cabin venting.
So that breathing of increase, that pre-breathe where they were breathing increased oxygen, we just heard that they're good. They all 4 crew members gave the go. So now we're gonna vent the cabin.
There you go. You can see the cabin pressurization in the bottom left corner coming down. Already down to 8.0.
In total, this will take about 8 minutes, and you can, the graphics you see on your screen, that's live telemetry, everybody. So you can see the pressure inside Dragon starting to tick down. You're going to see the suit pressure tick down as well, is what we're really trying to maintain is a pressure differential. And so with these suits, we're going to be hovering right around 5 or so. You might see about 4.9 to 5.1, 5.2. It'll be about 4.9, and then we'll probably see it go up a little bit when they reinitiate the secondary flow for cooling.
Copy 7.
Yeah, Dan, and you talked about that, about 5 PSI is what the suit will be. We're actually a little bit lower in the EMU.
Yeah.
And so we've talked a lot about mobility. That difference between we're at 4.2 and they're going to be at 5, it can actually make quite a bit of difference just in how hard it can be to move the suit around, et cetera.
Yeah, this crew got to, and that's something we can simulate, in a vacuum chamber or even just in 14.7. You can simulate that differential pressure. Getting calls from the crew. They're monitoring along.
EV1's good. Forward
Everybody's good.
We're going to hear that we're going to hear that chorus pretty frequently, where you do those kind of frequent, almost like check-ins. And I know you guys did something kind of similar where like you would have to pause and, you know, check your gloves, that kind of stuff.
We did. I will tell you, one of the interesting things watching this live right now, the difference is how quickly the depressurization is happening here versus what my experience was. And so you talked about being able to clear your ears and all that. You're not giving a lot of time for your ears to adapt to that lower pressure. So this seems pretty quick to me.
I'm so nervous.
Yeah, breaking new ground with this, new suits, new operations for everything. We're at about 4.5. We're going to see that tick down. It's going to get down to just under 1, and it's not going to go all the way down. And then what we'll actually see is we've got a capability to open the hatch automatically. We've got a motor in it, but Jared's actually going to unlatch it, and he's going to give it a little tug to kind of break the seal, any of the kind of the stiction in the hatch itself, and that's going to kind of take the capsule down to its final vent before Sarah, who's at the displays, she's going to command the hatch to actually open.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, there will be slightly more pressure inside the capsule, so really just helping.
4 psi, seat pressures look good.
SpaceX copies 4.
So Jared really can't open the hatch all in one fluid motion, so we will see him release that pressure slightly before being able to open it completely.
And I think one of the important things, you guys, I think I talked earlier about you put some more restraint devices inside the capsule from when I flew on it. And that's extremely important because there's going to be some force that Jared's going to have to be pulling down on, and he needs to be able to anchor his feet somehow. Otherwise, he's going to pull and it's not going to go anywhere. And so the new restraint devices in there, we're going to see how important that's going to become here when he tries to open that hatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's why we have Skywalker out there. We've talked about how kind of similar to Gemini when they were first kind of stressing their legs, but important to remember we've got that 50 or 60 years of spaceflight history that we're able to draw on. These are new suits. This is a new operation. This is to, you know, work out all the kinks and really test this for the first time. But we're going into this with a whole lot more information than they had back then. We know you need handrails or it's going to get real hard real quick.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
We did also hear Dragon's moving into its EVA orientation. Essentially, we're going to point the trunk at the sun under 3 psi.
I think it's also interesting.
Yeah, we're really getting into it here now. We're only just over 2.5 psi of atmosphere inside the capsule. Everything's venting out. They are living off those suits.
TV1, time check.
TV1, loud and clear.
Loud and clear as well.
And also hear the Vox starting to adjust its levels.
Yeah, this is the
flow of oxygen
this is the nerve-wracking part because like
kind of adjusted and it's getting a little bit
this,
clearer.
like
And yeah, keep
things could change fast. You know, hopefully nothing does. But this is where, yeah, now they're.
I do think that's an important point, Dan.
Now we're getting into risky business.
Comm is, right, and when it's compromised a little bit just by that extra airflow and the Vox not keeping up with it right away, how challenging it was just to hear those calls, and they can be some pretty important calls.
Of course.
Comm is just critical.
We can see Dragon capsule now approaching close to 2 psia. Like Dan mentioned earlier, that's going to get to just under 1. It's incredible to think that, you know, the Dragon capsule in all of its power and glory and awesomeness, the new capsule is around their bodies, right?
Yeah.
That is what is going to protect them from the vacuum of space. And, you know, just seeing how, even though it's puffed up and we know that it's, you know, holding that pressure, it still looks so cool, for lack of a better word.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Oh, we're good. Supply 2 dead.
Yeah, you really have 4 mini spaceships in there.
Pressure approaching 2 psi.
Under 2 now.
I guess that means we have 4 aliens in there too.
Yeah, that's right.
Dragon SpaceX, less than 1 psi from hatch operating pressure. We have a TDRS handover in 2 minutes. We are going to wait until after the TDRS handover to command into hatch open prep.
EV1 copy.
So TDRS is the communication satellite that all their audio is going through. So they got a handover between 2 TDRS satellites that they're coming up on. That's where their audio communications are being routed through. Video communications are being routed through ground stations. They are not currently using Starlink for any of the audio or video. They have used it already, and they'll be doing some more demonstrations with that as well. But the primary communications is through TDRS satellites, and then the video is through ground stations.
Originally designed to be able to still operate in a vacuum. That was some of the emergency situations I know you trained for, Mike. We did make some modifications to this one to essentially turn Dragon into a functional airlock. We added some additional vent paths. We do use like some of the same ones that you guys use to like pressurize the vestibule and stuff like that. That are actually in the hatch, but we've got an extra one in there to be able to essentially do that depress as quickly as we did.
Only
We're
1.5 psi now.
To a little under 1, and then we're gonna see Jared kind of jump into action. He's gonna unlatch the hatch, and then he's gonna give it a little pull to break the initial stiction, and then we're gonna be able to see Sarah.
1.5 psia. All suits look good.
Everything looking good so far, but yeah, this is nerve-wracking now.
To note that while we have been progressing through this pretty quickly, we did have the capability to pause if any of the 4 crew members needed to, take a moment to, let their ears come to equilibrium or just kind of get comfortable again. We did have that option, but everything has been going really well so far. We haven't had to pause cabin venting.
So we're expecting the cabin pressure to get just below 1.
Heck of a time to do it. We're about
Good timing.
a little under 28 minutes into the spacewalk today, which again, that started when we started flowing O2 to the suits of these.
If you didn't catch it, that cabin pressurization will not go all the way to 0. It's going to be just below 1. They won't be able to get it all the way to 0, and then that's why Jared Isaacman's going to have to give a little tug on the hatch to kind of break the seal.
We've got Dragon's trunk pointing towards
the sun.
You on board, watching through the cross view.
And then it should get down to 0 at that point, I would think.
Arthur Burialt, just letting the crew know that where the cameras are on inside and basically which camera is looking at them.
It's so fun to hear Arthur's voice because he was actually a part of our mission as well. In fact, Arthur was an intern.
1.1.
Started out as an intern when we were first starting the training, and so now to see him as a core and is pretty neat.
Very similar to Sarah, who also started as an intern.
Yes, yeah.
Right, we're coming up on 1 psi. You saw the light change a little bit through that window as we're in our EVA position, trunk facing the sun. That's going to help us with thermal inside the capsule and on the crew suits. Also going to make sure we're maintaining that optimal pointing for communications with the TDRS satellites. Once the hatch is open, we're going to disable any of the Draco thrusters that point forward, because you don't want thrusters firing off when a crew member's outside.
No thruster firings. It also looks like our altitude is getting pretty close to apogee again. We're over 700 kilometers, so it does look like this EVA is going to happen at apogee when they're furthest away from Earth. So we're still climbing. We're at 703. We're still climbing.
Ambient cabin there in Dragon.
That umbilical that you see there, just to the side of Jared, that will continue to flow the air into his suit as well as provide telemetry and communications connection. That's also where we have the safety harness built in as well, so it's able to...
Dragon SpaceX, cabin pressure below hatch operating limit. Stand by for transition to hatch open prep.
There we go. We're under 1 PSI.
Here we go.
So they are pretty much in vacuum right now. They're still 0.9 PSI, but they're at the point where now they can...
Mike, did you get to open the hatch?
They're within the operational limits of where they can open the hatch, and the pressure differential is small enough that they can open the hatch here. So we should see hatch opening here
For an EVA hatch open prep.
shortly.
Ready to open hatch.
That is great news.
Hatch opening. EV1 good. EV2 good. EV1 good. EV2 good. SpaceX EV1, we're ready to open the hatch.
They're ready to open.
Copies. Dragon, you are go to open hatch.
There it is. Go to open.
Exciting.
Copy that, SpaceX. Go to open the hatch.
Mike, as you mentioned before, that continuous
Still
communication.
on the hatch handle.
Oh my goodness.
As you
Scared
can
the
hear, we
heck
do
out
have
of
a
me.
crowd gathering outside of Mission Control here in Hawthorne. In their excitement, somebody dropped a cup.
Oh, is that what that was?
You can
Oh my
see
goodness,
our
that scared me.
commander, Jared Isaacman.
Thought that was
now
the capsule.
turning the crank, which allows the that top hatch to open. We'll see him give it a pretty heavy.
SpaceX EV1, hatch is visually indicating open.
Visibly indicating open.
SpaceX copies. Stand by.
Should see him give that hatch a pretty strong jolt to release that stiction. Hatch is now unlatched.
The cup didn't drop in vacuum. The cup dropped in mission control, or not even mission control, where they're broadcasting from, where Kate Tice
Mike
is
talked about we're seeing
speaking
Dennis
from.
feet-
That's where the cup
get
drop
his feet
was,
set.
not in the
Right.
capsule.
Dan, you'd asked if I'd gotten open the hatch. So when you go out as EV1, just like Jared here as EV1, that's typically the role for you is to open that hatch. And
You guys
so-
have to draw straws, fight over who gets. It's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Now, for those of you that have just recently joined, as you can see, we have successfully depressurized the Dragon capsule down to 0 PSIA. You see that in the bottom left-hand side, bottom left corner of your
Yeah.
screen. Our 4 Polaris Dawn crew members have gone through the O2 flow, and we see Commander Jared Isaacman now standing by to open that top hatch. The nose cone is already open. It opened just shortly after the crew got into orbit. So
Dragon SpaceX target pressure reached.
Yeah, they're at 0.0. I thought it would stay a little bit higher, but
I'm unseating the hatch now.
they are at 0.0 PSI in the capsule.
Dragon
The hatch
resilience
is unseated.
Oh, here we go. It's moving.
into space.
So we saw some motion on the hatch. Again, he's just giving it kind of that initial tug. And then Sarah gets to push the button to swing that hatch open.
Much more movement there on the forward hatch. This must be pretty exciting for Jared because that center part of
Dragon SpaceX, that's a good brace. We're going to have you repeat the operation.
center of the hatch actually has a window.
SpaceX, the hatch is unseated.
Copy.
Let's give it another call.
The hatch is several inches insulated from the light.
Copy, we see it.
I mean, it is open. You're not completely open, but it's definitely not sealed.
Looking out that tiny window there in the forward hatch, knowing he is going to have a much bigger window in just minutes.
Yeah, look at now. You can see. I wonder. Oh, I was wondering if something was gonna. Seeing stuff float around in the capsule there. I'm wondering if it's being pulled toward, like, it does say 0.0 psi, but I wonder if there's still airflow. That's one thing you got to be careful of, is you don't want things leaving the vehicle.
And EV1 copy, transitioning back under the display.
Are there two hatches, inner and outer? Nope, there's just one hatch. That's it. Just this hatch right there. There is no airlock on this. So
again, one of the reasons we
one
had
hatch.
Jared do that was to.
Dragon SpaceX, we're actually watching that hatch. We're going to have you repeat the last operation.
Looks like they're having some trouble.
One of the reasons we're doing that is just to kind of vent any of that residual atmosphere.
Up from under the display.
And EV1, you are go for manual hatch open.
Manual hatch open now.
Audible of the day, as we said, that we can open the hatch.
Opening the hatch manually.
We could open the hatch. We could open the hatch automatically, or we can do it manually. And so they just gave Jared the go to open that hatch manually. So we just went out of ground station reach, so we'll get the views back.
Wow.
We'll get the views back real shortly. And then the hatch will get
we'll
open.
see a hatch open.
And hopefully we see it. Yeah, hopefully we see a hatch open.
The hatch is open.
SpaceX copies, hatch open.
Hatch is open. All right. We can't see it yet, but
fantastic news for those that.
SpaceX EV1, I'm looking at the seals. Initial view looks pretty good. I don't see any bulges or indentations.
Copy on hatch seal report.
radio quality of so Mike's commenting about the radio quality. It's actually not the radio quality. So you have to remember that those suits have these really powerful fans in them, not only to pump oxygen in, but also they're breathing out carbon dioxide, and you don't want to create a bubble of
EV2 SpaceX, can you command open forward hatch? This is going to stall it open.
There is our first view of the forward hatch, wide open to space.
There you go. So yeah, again, the static we're hearing is the fans blowing. It's not really poor quality radio. It's just the fans blowing because they're trying to pump in oxygen and also move the oxygen around the suits to make sure you don't get a carbon dioxide bubble right by your nose and mouth where you're actually breathing.
Looking out.
Dragon SpaceX, we see it stalled. EV1 is go to continue.
This is a helmet cam from Jared here.
For egress. SpaceX EV1, I'm transitioning back from under the displays.
SpaceX copies, we're with you in your helmet cam.
Here we go. Go for egress.
Once again,
helmet cam.
Helmet cam. That structure we see is the Spacewalker. This is Jared now.
Oh, he's going out
through the forward hatch of Dragon Resilience.
Oh my goodness.
These are the first views of the first ever commercial spacewalk.
I'm at the bottom of the mobility aid, progressing.
I have a feeling the crowd is about to go wild.
He's leaving the camp. There we go. There we go. Good call. It's so cool.
Approaching the top of the mobility aid.
That is so cool.
You know, SpaceX, back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world. step into test matrix 1. Single-handed mobility demonstration.
Oh, look at that. Oh, my
Commander
God.
Jared Isaacman now emerging
Copy, we're
from...
reviewing test matrix 1, watching from the nose cone.
Oh, my goodness.
Up, down, left, and right are 3s. Pitch and roll are 3. Yaw is a 2. Switching. Single-handed operations are fine. Static and with dynamic disturbance. Switching to left hand.
That's got to be one of the most epic views ever.
Up, down, left, and right are 3s, maybe a 2. Pitch is a 4. Roll is a 2. Yaw is a 2.
So these are the suit mobility checks that Jared is
Single-handed
performing.
operations, dynamic and with disturbance, are all adequate. Test matrix 1 complete. HUD check, 5.3 psi, 48% RH, 33.9 Celsius.
SpaceX copies test matrix 1 and HUD readout.
Crew ops check, EV1's good.
EV2 good. Port 1 good. Port 2 good.
Okay, stepping into vertical translation. We're going to start with the horizontal bars. All right, we're going to transition over to vertical. I'd say vertical and horizontal are equally workable, slightly favors horizontal. I'm going to do a max reach. Left hand's at the top of the mobility aid. At the midpoint. You have good video?
We just lost our live video, but stand by 1.
Okay, switching over to max reach, switching hands. Copy that, SpaceX. I'm holding up at the max reach.
And EV1, go ahead and continue the operation. We'll let you know we're back on with live video.
Copy that. And for your awareness, max reach, left aid, and the mid bar. And that's test matrix 2 is complete. HUD readout, 5.3 psi, 33.9 Celsius, 50% RH.
Copy, test matrix complete and HUD readout.
Crew op check, EV1's good.
EV2 good. We're good. Port 2 good.
Stepping into test matrix 3, hands-free demonstration.
EV1 SpaceX for ingress time.
Go, SpaceX.
Recommended ingress time of O2 flow plus 7 minutes.
Copy that. Ingress time, 7 minutes.
And Dragon, we're back on live video from the nose cone.
So he's got 3 minutes until he's got to go back in.
Copy that, SpaceX.
He's going hands-free now, he said.
And SpaceX EV1, I would say the hands-free demonstration is very comparable to the trainer in terms of the foot restraints.
SpaceX copies. And EV1, when you have time, if you'd like to return to the reach demonstration, we'll take a look at that with the live video.
Copy that. Test matrix 3 is complete. The HUD readout is 5.3 psi, 47% RH, 33.8 Celsius, and stepping back into max reach.
Copy test matrix 3.
And as you can see, top of the mobility aid. And let's get a quick crew ops check. EV1's good.
EV2's good.
I'm good.
4-2's good.
Copy that. Okay, max reach, whether it's left or right hand, seems to be about the same. Top of the mobility aid, and then the mid-row.
Copy, we see it.
Checking up from the bottom. Any go back, SpaceX?
Negative. We got about 1 minute until EV1 ingress.
Copy that, 1 minute. It's gorgeous.
I think he's done all his checks. Now he's just taking in the view.
He wanted to see his eyes to get the umbilical around his right foot.
EV1, we're checking out your helmet cam now.
Well, I'm checking out your nose cone right now. And looks pretty good.
Copy, we'll return to nose cone. See you looking at us.
So he's going to have to go back in here in about 5 seconds.
All right, we're coming up about that O2 flow timer time. Crew check for ingress. EV1's good.
EV2's good. 4-2's good.
All right. SpaceX EV1. Congrats for the huge team effort that it took to get us to this point. We know it's just the start. And I'm transitioning back into the vehicle.
And that's it for him.
And SpaceX EV1, we've taken a quick look here at the hatch seals. From what I can see so far, they look pretty good.
Copy on the hatch seals and stand by for transition to 3-DOF reset.
Copy that, SpaceX. Good. And EV1 is clear.
All right, so Jared back inside. We heard him going through what's called the test matrix. It's basically just a bunch of maneuvers using different hands, using the foot mobility.
3-DOF reset is in progress.
Calling out numbers. Right now, though, we're doing, you just heard Arthur call up 3-DOF reset, so we didn't use any of the forward thrusters while Jared was out there. We're re-enabling them, putting us back in our perfect attitude before Sarah gets ready to go out the door. Fun thing to note, it's still not a perfect vacuum inside a Dragon. It's an open loop system, so oxygen is kind of getting dumped into the cabin as this is going on. So you got a higher pressure in Dragon than you have outside. So we're not worried about thruster pluming.
Yeah, now you mentioned Sarah, just like Jared, she will have 10 to 15 minutes outside, perform those same sets of mobility tests as Jared. Like we heard the Corps do with EV1, they will call out when there's 1 minute remaining.
SpaceX, attitude reset complete. EV2, go for egress.
There's Sarah's clear.
EV2's go.
Crew check for EV2 egress.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
We're good.
Port 2 good. EV2 is going to go stand in the door and then step outside.
Now, this test matrix that Jared just performed and the one that Sarah's about to perform, they have both committed to memory in order to execute these. We saw it being done pretty efficiently. I can't believe how quickly that time went by. Mike, we were talking about how your spacewalks were hours, and these guys only have 10 to 15 minutes, and it just like that.
Yeah, it can go pretty quick, and but fortunately.
Skills look good. I see a little bit of a bulge between 14 and 13.
So you're hearing Sarah call out some more of the seal check there as she's exiting out.
It's reseated.
SpaceX copies that report. Good fix.
So this was something we knew might happen. And
it's
Sarah,
between 28 and 27.
Copy.
So it looks like they got a little bit of seal bulging that they're trying to reseat.
And
Reseat
one
it.
final between 19 and 18. That might be best reseated with hatch closure.
SpaceX copies. Can you repeat the location?
After EVA complete. Between 19 and 18.
All right, copy. I'll track that and ask again when you're ingress.
Copy. EV2 is proceeding with egress.
super exciting to see this. Our fellow SpaceXer, Sarah Gillis, now about to make her spacewalk.
EV1, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Like we mentioned, Sarah will be performing the same set of mobility tests. So we will do the same, try to stand by and listen to those comms.
Here she goes. This is wild. Wild. This is so crazy. This is cool.
I mean, I said it before, a lot of us work here because we want to do this.
All right, stepping into test matrix 1 for single-handed mobility.
Really cool to see one of our own out there. That's awesome.
And EV2 for awareness, we're watching from the nose cone.
And copy all. I would say in all three translation axes, I'm having certainly cross-coupled movements. Forward, back, I am inducing a bit of a roll. Similarly with left, right, and up, down, a bit of a pitch, but all are achievable. Rating is 3. Yaw is a 3. Roll is a 4. And pitch is a 3.
Oops. Didn't mean to do that.
Source from left hand. Stepping into vertical translation.
SpaceX copies. And EV2 for awareness, we're tracking an ingress time at O2 flow, 5-9 minutes.
Copy, 5-9 minutes.
So she's got about 3 minutes or so. Currently east of Australia right now.
Definitely preferred. And I'm adequately able to stabilize my body with single-hand disturbances. Clear for both left and right. Stepping into max reach, do you have visual?
Affirm, we have visual on the nose cone.
Copy from bar 4 to bar 2, from top down. And similar reach from bar 2 up to bar 4.
SpaceX copies reach.
And EVA test matrix 1 complete. Seat pressure 5.25, 33.8 Celsius, 37% humidity.
SpaceX copies HUD readout and test matrix 1 complete.
Lost video. So remember, video is going through.
Stepping into test matrix 2.
Like we mentioned before, views going in and out due to those ground station coverage gaps.
Yeah, we comms are
Some of the same.
comms are through satellites, but we've got ground stations for video on Dragon. As you can see in the tracker, we just flew over New Zealand. We're about to go right over the middle of the Pacific. No ground stations in the middle of the Pacific.
Forward are actually pretty good.
We're hearing the voice of mission specialist Sarah Gillis, our fellow SpaceXer on her spacewalk.
She's got about a minute left, and then she's going to start heading inside.
And SpaceX with a little more work, they can actually get between almost bar 1 and bar 4 on max reach.
SpaceX copies.
And you could see the Earth dark, and we flew into like an
All
orbital.
right, and test matrix 2, trying to combine them, so we'll call that complete. Seat pressure 5.27, 38% humidity, 33.7 Celsius.
SpaceX copies matrix complete and HUD readout.
Stepping into hands-free demo. I'm able to engage and disengage my feet.
Copy that, EV2. And once you are able to engage, disengage, we'll actually have you start ingress. We're just over 5-9 minutes O2 flow.
Copy. With that, EV2 is proceeding with ingress. Pre-check for ingress.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Good.
14 good. Copy. Coming on in.
Well, we lost video. They're over the Pacific Ocean here now. So remember, audio communications are by TDRS satellites.
Like that, Sarah.
Video communications are going through ground stations.
Check those hatch seals again.
SpaceX copies on striker plates. And EV2, I have one more ask for the hatch, if you can check that out as well when ready to copy.
Ready? Ready, copy.
Copy. And EV2, what I'll have you do is, when you ingress, can you get eyes on the hatch handle mechanism and see if the handle has been stowed in the do not stow window, and report if you can see that?
Check it.
Did you stow the handle where?
Just outside.
Copy, just outside. Thank you.
Did you?
Just outside the range.
Did you stow the handle where it says "Do not stow"?
And for awareness, I do see a couple of those same points bulging again between 12 and 13.
Copy, your go to
Five.
address.
No, mostly between 12 and 13 right now.
SpaceX copies at 12. If you can, your go to address those.
Copy and work.
These numbers being called out represent the location around. Yeah, the location around the circular hatch, just identifying where these bulges are. So Sarah's now reseating that seal.
Not quite able to reach the back one, so we'll proceed with clearing for hatch closure.
Just like that, we're already hearing about hatch closure. It's incredible that these two EVAs, just in 2 blinks of the eyes, are...
EV2 is clear of hatch, please.
2 checks.
On your screen there is SpaceX Core, or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer. On duty tonight is Arthur Berrialt. This is the voice to the crew throughout their operations. Of course, you know, everyone has to sleep, so we have different shifts for Core. But Mike, your time in Dragon.
Driving close. You're good?
Copy. Deploying handle. Applying force. And closing.
Once we get ground station coverage, again, we will be sure to bring you views within the Dragon capsule. But right now, Sarah is closing the forward hatch.
It sounds like we might give the motor a try.
Confirm the hatch is visually indicating closed.
And hatch is verified latch.
Hey, command and EVA hatch closed.
Closing the hatch here now. Ronald over on Facebook asked, is the Dragon spacecraft altitude higher than Gemini 11? Gemini 11 altitude is like 1373 kilometers. They're currently at 418 kilometers. They did exceed that altitude yesterday.
And pressure indicates good hatch seal. Stand by for transition to EVA repress 1.
Well, they exceeded the Gemini 11 altitude yesterday, but then for the spacewalk, they lowered their altitude. The highest altitude they're reaching for the spacewalk was just over 700 kilometers.
EV1 closed.
EV2 closed.
EV1 closed.
14 closed.
So a couple of real big moments right there. Sarah was able to make sure.
We're in EVA repress 1.
We copy secondary flow is closed and agree. EVA repress 1.
She was able to make sure that the seals were in good spot.
There you go. Pressure's coming back up on the Dragon capsule now.
Out of a half PSI for 8.3.
See the pressure starting to tick up.
And thank you very much, Charles, for the donation to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Charles with a $20 donation. Just in case, to remind you, while everybody's still here, the Polaris Dawn mission is also serving as a fundraiser for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So if you're watching over on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, consider going over to YouTube. But on YouTube, there is a fundraiser for St. Jude's. 100% of what you donate goes directly to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital.
Secondary O2 valves are closed. EV1's closed.
EV2 closed.
Forward closed.
14 closed.
Copy that. And we're through 1 for 8.3.
All right, so each of the crew just closed those secondary O2 valves on their umbilicals. Again, that was primarily for cooling. During the spacewalk itself, the suit's still pressurized by that primary, and now we're going to start to see the pressure tick up inside of Dragon. Right after they get the hatch closed, they're able to do kind of an initial pressure check, because again, oxygen, it's an open loop system with these suits still flowing into the cabin. You're able to see positive pressure response showing that the cabin, the hatch was closed and was sealed. We'll still do a leak check on our way kind of back up to our nominal cabin pressure. So we're going to continue ticking up until we're about 8.3 psi, and then we're going to transition into the second phase of our repress. Really the difference between repress 1, repress 2 is how frequently we're injecting atmosphere, as kind of the repress is also pretty unique with Dragon. We're repressurizing with just nitrogen right now, which is a little bit unique. Obviously, you have nitrogen and oxygen in your atmosphere. With this, we have O2 flowing into the cabin through the suits, so we only need to add nitrogen. So we're able to just basically add a bunch of that to really start getting your pressure up. O2 continues to flow into the cabin through the suits, and we're going to continue pressurizing until we're pretty much right back at our 14.
Fan 1 coming on, medium speed.
Right at about our 14 or so PSI. And we're also looking at what the partial pressure of oxygen is, because we want to make sure the crew takes helmets off and everything, that plenty of oxygen in the cabin. And then we're going to change that injection rate to just help with the mixing. Is microgravity, everything's harder, everything's on hard mode, and you don't just have natural convection. So like, I mean, space station, I think I've heard it a bunch of times, Mike, like you just constant noise of fans.
That's right.
Almost.
Yeah, there's you've got to continually recycle that air, and one, to help get rid of the CO2, right? Because as they're taking in that oxygen, they're breathing out the CO2, and we need to get that out of the system, which is another important reason to have that air constantly circulating.
Yeah.
Got 3 awesome donations coming in for St. Jude's. They're all anonymous, though, so I can't thank you personally, but we got an anonymous €20 donation, an anonymous 10-pound donation, and an anonymous $20 donation, all to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So thank you to whoever made those anonymous donations. Yeah, it's a great cause. I mean, all this stuff with Polaris Dawn is pretty awesome, but it's even cooler that they're using this as a fundraiser for an amazing cause, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So if you have the means and you're so inclined, consider heading over to the YouTube live stream and making a donation to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. None of it comes to me. None of it comes to Overlook Horizon. None of it goes to YouTube. 100% of your donation goes directly to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. So consider a donation. It's kind of an awesome cause. Supports the Polaris. Like it kind of shows the Polaris program is worth all this effort, right? So they, of course, Jared Isaacman is putting out a lot of money to do all this kind of stuff, but when we see all the support happening on the donations and what they're able to do for St. Jude, like it just makes the mission even more special.
For us, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But out there in the vacuum and in the microgravity environment, it does become a much bigger deal.
And you, Dan and I, we've never been in space, so we certainly appreciate all of your expertise that you'd be able to share with us throughout this morning's operations and contributing your 2 cents.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was great to be here. Just an incredible moment, not only for the Polaris Dawn, for all of SpaceX, and really for for humanity, because it's just one of those small steps that's taken us that much closer to being that interplanetary species. So thank you very much for having me around.
Our pleasure. You're welcome back anytime.
Excellent. All right.
Good to
Thanks,
see
guys.
you, Hopper.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, so repress is continuing. We're a little over 4 PSI right now. Again, we're going to keep that going up until we're a little over 8, and then we're going to change our repress rate. We're basically just going to be injecting nitrogen for shorter periods of time. That's just going to help that atmosphere mix as we get the crew kind of back up to their basically their normal cabin atmosphere that they haven't actually been at for the last couple of days, because we started this whole process like right after we got on orbit.
Yeah, it was almost like we launched them and gave them 2 seconds to acclimate and enjoy their cute 0G indicator, and immediately stepped into the pre-breathe in order to prepare for today's activity. And really, like you said, let them acclimate and let their bodies adjust. And, you know, the success of that really was demonstrated today by the fact that we were able to step through all of the steps today without having to take the optional and available breaks to allow the crew members to adjust during. Oh, sorry, I thought we were gonna get something there.
Yeah,
we're getting the pressure back up in the cabin. We're just about to 5 psi in the cabin here. They're targeting, I think, 8.3. I think they said. So we're getting pretty close to that. We're out of video coverage range right now. They use ground stations for video, but we should be getting that back soon. They're right over the middle of the Pacific Ocean, so hopefully. Hopefully that video coverage will come back here shortly. But we did get a whole bunch of awesome donations to St. Jude's coming in here again. Framrick popping in for just a couple of minutes with a 20-pound donation to St. Jude's. Thank you very much, Framrick, one of our amazing channel moderators. Thetis Legacy became a channel member. Thanks for joining the channel, supporting us here at Overlook Horizon. Really appreciate that. Anonymous with a $20 donation to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Jeff Stidham with the big $50 donation. Thank you, Jeff. That's super generous. Jeff made a big $50 donation to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. An amazing contribution. Thank you very much. And, you know, it's really pretty awesome that that they're able to do this fundraiser. They generate so much attention from the mission and generate so much interest to also kind of piggyback a fundraiser for an amazing cause like St. Jude's is pretty awesome. So yeah, consider donating if you have the means to do so.
Approaching 1 psi on PPO2.
I'm sure for Jared and Sarah, it flew by even quicker.
Yeah. We just heard Jared call down. We're coming up on 1 PSI for PPO2. So what we're really tracking before we give the crew the go to get out of their suits is both the actual, like just the straight up, what the absolute pressure is inside, but also what the partial pressure of oxygen is. We want to make sure you don't have a hypoxic environment inside. Basically, you want to get them. They're going to be pretty much right back at the atmosphere that we're walking around in right now before they get their suits off. Our EVA clock's going to continue to count until we hear the call for EVA operations complete from our core Arthur Burial. That's going to come once we are done with the repress operation. We'll see a couple of other things happen with the suits. They'll do kind of a final washout of the Puro 2 environment in the suit using nitrox before they get out.
Nitrox being that same air mixture that you have in your scuba tank. If you've got any scuba divers out there, that nitrogen oxygen mixture. Nope, still just air.
They're just gonna keep psyching you out. We should hopefully be getting video back from ground stations.
SpaceX, passing 7. Stand by for transition to repress 2 at 8.3.
And copy that, SpaceX. We're following along. Repress 2 at 8.3.
Yeah, so once we transition to repress 2, once we're at about 8.3 psi, we'll stay there for about 2 minutes. And then once the cabin gets up to 9, we're going to pause the repress and we're going to do a cabin leak check. This is another kind of critical check. We did the initial one after they closed the hatch, where you're able to do just kind of a, let's look at the pressure. Is it increasing at the rate we expect inside Dragon? Yes, it is. And so we were able to confirm that seals and everything looked good. We're going to do another leak check now that we've got more pressure inside Dragon, just to really make sure that we've got a good seal on that hatch before we finish the operation. Coming up on 8.3. We should be hopefully just about a minute and a half or so away from ground station, so might get those views back inside of Dragon.
Yeah, it would be great to see them post EVA. Now, just like when we were depressurizing the capsule, there was the option to pause.
EVA repress 2. Crew ops check. EV1 good.
We're good.
And yeah, that comms that we're hearing.
At a half PSI before we get to the leak check.
So we're now up to 8.5 psi. We're back to regular cabin pressure.
The continual
8.6.
checks with all 4 crew members to make sure that everyone is good. If the answer to one of those checks was no, there would be an option in this repress sequence to pause, possibly to reduce the, allow for ear pressure equalization. But again, just like the way that we depressurize, now this repress, it seems to be going really smoothly.
Yeah,
it's really fast too, to be honest.
Say we're almost there, and then it's going to tick up. But we're going to pause at 9. We're going to do another cabin leak check, so we should hear that momentarily.
They're going all the way. Oh, so wait, they were at 8.6 when they started. Are they going all the way up to? Maybe I missed this in the broadcast. They might be going all the way up to 14.
Dragon SpaceX is with you in EVA repress 2 stop. Waiting 5 minutes for thermal stabilization.
And we're copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking. And crew for your awareness, we do a positive repress rate.
So they might have been, when we started this whole process, we started the live stream, they were already at 8.6 psi. That might have just been like a pre-breathe. They might have already dropped the pressure a little bit for pre-breathing purposes. And they might now be going back all the way back up to 14.7 psi maybe. Not sure what their target is. I might have missed that in the broadcast.
They're still flowing that oxygen. And in a few minutes, we will begin to flow. We'll do a flush of nitrox into the suits.
So right now, they're pausing at 9 psi to let them kind of equalize their ears. There we go. We got video footage back.
It's a little sad to see that forward hatch closed again.
It's got to be really hard when they tell you it's time to go back in.
Yeah.
Just one more minute.
Yep. It reminds me of when I was a kid swimming in the pool. You know, time to get out. Just one more minute.
I mean, it speaks to the professionalism for Jared, for Sarah, for the whole crew, really. Like that's got to be, this is something they've been training for years. And it's got to be really hard not to go for those, that extra 30 seconds. But they're true professionals.
Yep. They know there's a timeline.
2 minutes into the 8-minute leak check. Crew ops check. Everyone's good.
We're good. What you good?
TPO2 just passed 1.5.
So they're coming over the coast of California here now.
We're a couple minutes into our leak check. You're seeing the pressure continue to tick up. We've stopped the nitrogen injections, but again, oxygen coming out of essentially a vent line on those suits. And that is why you're going to continue to see the pressure tick up. You heard Jared call out the PPO2. That's gone up. That's your partial pressure of oxygen. We're looking for that to get to over about 2.6, a little bit higher. And then our final actual, just ambient pressure inside Dragon's going to be right around 14.4 or so. And I mean, that's little bit lower than what we're walking around
Yeah.
in now, but like if you're at a little higher altitude state in the country or something, that's what you might be sitting in right now in your house, and they haven't been at that pressure since they left Earth.
Yeah.
So
But
14.4
after
is
we
what they're
get
going
all the way
to.
up there, we're gonna do kind of a final flush of the suits using that nitrox that Kay was talking about. That takes them out of that pure oxygen environment, and that's one of the final steps before we'll hear that call from Arthur of EVA operations complete, and that's when our clock's gonna stop. Our spacewalk did.
So Michael G asked, why is SpaceX using ground stations when they have Starlink? So yeah, just as a reminder, they audio communications are over TDRS satellites, but the video communications, the video stream is coming through on ground stations. Starlink, they're too high for Starlink primarily, so the Starlink satellites are actually below them. But they do have a Starlink laser system that they're intending to demo. But in general, they're not demoing that right now because they pointed the trunk, which is where that Starlink laser link is located. They pointed the trunk directly at the sun to help with thermal control so that the astronauts weren't doing the EVA directly in the sun. So can't really do both of those things at the same time. So they're using traditional communication, spacecraft communications right now, which is the TDRS satellites for audio communications and the ground stations for the video stream.
Properly sealed and shut. It's very similar to a suit leak check that we do in terms of sustaining a pressure and measuring that pressure over a period of time. Obviously the leak check for the capsule takes a little longer than the individual suit leak checks, but so far so good. A little bit more than halfway through.
Yeah, bigger volume.
Check evaluation period start 3 minutes.
All right, so we hit.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking.
Hit essentially a thermal stabilization. So again, this is the fun. I think it's chemistry. I'm not sure, but like as you're raising the pressure, you're changing the thermal environment inside the cabin. So temperature goes up. Your temperature goes up, your pressure can go up. So you wait for all of that to kind of equalize, and once that gets at a steady state, you can do a real no kidding pressure check on this hatch. And so we're underway with that. That's going to take a couple of minutes, and then we'll hear the results and then look to resume with the repress.
So here's a little bit of interesting tidbit. This is according to Jonathan McDowell. He basically timed the spacewalk. Spacewalk time period, 33 minutes, 25 seconds. Hatch open close time was about 26 minutes and 40 seconds. Jared Isaacman was outside the hatch for 7 minutes. 7 minutes and 56 seconds. And Sarah Gillis was outside the hatch for 7 minutes and 15 seconds. So unfortunately, pretty short, but yeah, it's the first of its kind. You know, they're probably gonna, you know, maybe we'll expand that in the future and see longer and longer spacewalks. I don't know if I'm not sure what the future plans are here, but you know, with it just being a test and them not really even knowing full mobility, it was about 7 minutes each. Jared Isaacman was actually closer to 8 minutes. Sarah was closer to 7.
Sometimes it seems as though the feed freezes just because everybody's relaxing as the.
We're coming up on 7 minutes in the leak check. It's 9.7. PPO2 is at 2.
Enough.
Now the big question, you know, of course, this is one of the riskier parts, is opening and closing the hatch again. They got to do a leak check and make sure that capsule's not leaking. If it is leaking, and they have to depressurize again and then clean the seals or something. Hopefully we don't have to do any drastic measures like that. They did say, Sarah Gillis noted that there were a couple of seal bulges where the seal around the hatch was actually kind of bulging out of the channel that it sits in, and they had her kind of push that back in and reseat it back in that channel. They were actually expecting that a little bit. But yeah, hopefully, you know, those are some of the little things that could turn into big things.
Thanks for following.
Great news there. Successful leak check of the cabin.
Well, that's good. So there we go. That's a big deal. Leak check is good.
All right, crew, we're in EVA Repress 2. As a reminder, EVA Repress 2 will complete when either PPO2 reaches 2.62 or cabin reaches 1 atmosphere. Right now, we're coming up on 10 psi for cabin pressure, and PPO2 is 2.2.
We're at 10 psi inside the capsule.
There from Jared again. Those are the values we're looking at. We're seeing the PPO2, that partial pressure of oxygen, continue to tick up. Once that gets to about 2.62, we're going to be done flowing that pure oxygen to the suits of the crew, and then eventually we're going to get to 1 atmosphere. It's about 14.4 is our target for today, and then our repress will be complete. So. This will go a little bit slower than the initial repress. This could take up to about 20 or 30 minutes, even in some of the times that we simmed it. You don't want to introduce them super quickly to a higher pressure. Anytime you're doing pressure changes, as gradual as you can make it, the better. And that's why we have like the built-in holds that we talked about that the crew can do.
Exactly. These are opportunities for the crew to pause the repress and just allow themselves to come to equilibrium.
Words are
Words are really hard right now.
It is.
And we haven't had to utilize.
2.3 PPO2, targeting 2.62. Cabin pressure is at 10.3. If I was a betting man, I'd say we get to the PPO2 threshold first. At that time, O2 will switch to nitrox in the suit.
All right, good news there.
And crew ops check, give me one, Tim.
Dragon SpaceX, we concur with EV1 call.
Continuing to repress the cabin. We had a successful leak check, and you can follow along with the repress along with the data there at the bottom of your screen. As Jared said, we are targeting about 14 psia for cabin pressure, or when cabin PPO2, that partial pressure for O2 reaches about 2.6. So we are continuing to progress pretty well.
2.4. Cabin's 10.55.
Are they back inside the capsule now? Asks Andrew. Yes, they are back inside the capsule now. So they completed the EVA. Jared Isaacman got about 8 minutes outside the vehicle. Sarah Gillis got just over 7 minutes outside the vehicle. And so yeah, they've completed the EVA. So now they're repressurizing the capsule. They're just about there. You could see the pressurization, the PSI level in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Currently, the capsule's at 10.7. Their suits are at 15.3, and they're measuring partial pressure of oxygen. It's at, I think I heard 2.4. They're waiting to get up to 2.62, and that'll kind of complete the repressurization process. So they're almost there to fully complete. Technically, the EVA is still going on because they're still living off the suits, but that should end in just a moment.
Here's the functionality of that test. Yep.
Yeah, and then doing the reach test, doing the up and down, and they did it at the very end. You saw Jared go hands-free for a second, and that was we had a foot restraint in Skywalker as well.
Admiral Ender over on Twitch said, isn't this the first time that Dragon has lost internal atmosphere? Yeah, this is the first time that they removed the atmosphere from the Dragon because there's no airlock, so they had to completely vent it all out and bring the cabin pressure down to 0.0
Yeah.
so that they could do this spacewalk, and now they're repressurizing it. So yeah, definitely that's definitely the first time that's happened.
Certainly a highlight for us.
Ben asked, was EVA 2 in complete darkness? Yeah, I think for the most part it was. So Jared Isaacman's EVA 1, he started on the in daylight, and we actually got a really cool view of Earth when he started. But by the time Sarah got out, rather, they were in darkness. Interestingly, though, I imagine, so we couldn't see, just based on camera exposure, we could not see the Earth. We were just seeing like a black screen behind him. But I bet that they could see Earth, even though it was dark. Like, they probably could still see lights and things like that we couldn't see in the camera view due to the camera exposure.
We're on nitrox pursuit. Cabin TPO2 is 2.6. And cabin atmosphere is 11.3.
Well, it might look like the feed is frozen. If you look closely, you can see small micro movements there with fingers and the strap above Anna's shoulder. We, unfortunately, due to ground station coverage, don't have video 100% of the time, even though we wish we did. That would be great. But we can see that Jared and Sarah are not strapped into their seats, of course, because they performed their EVAs, or their spacewalks, extravehicular activities, where Anna and Kid remained in their seats, the window seats, so we can see their safety harnesses still strapped in there. At this point in time, we are continuing with the repressurization of the Dragon capsule, Dragon Resilience. We had a successful leak check.
1 good.
4-1 good.
4-2 good.
Commander Jared Isaacman continuing to check in with his three fellow.
Check secondary O2 valve open. EV1's open.
EV2's open.
4-1 open. 4-1 open.
4-2 open.
Continuing to repressurize the Dragon capsule. We're targeting about 14.1 psia for the Dragon pressure, which is the telemetry readout in the far bottom left corner of your screen.
So Sarah asked, "Is the mission now over and they'll return to Earth?" Not yet. So it's a 5-day mission. We're just starting day 3. So they'll recover from this and debrief from this. Tomorrow they have a Starlink laser demonstration that they'll perform, and then they come back on day 5. So expecting them to come back like Saturday sometime. So yes, they'll still be up there until Saturday before they come back.
To actually function as they're cooling. So we're switching over to nitrox just to make sure we maintain kind of the right balance of nitrogen and oxygen in that cabin before they get to go to take their suits off. So we're already at that for the O2. And so we're on nitrox in the suits now, still injecting kind of the pure nitrogen into the cabin itself. And the teams just keep an eye on the O2 levels as we go throughout, and we can adjust our injections as we need to. So we're just kind of hanging out now, waiting until they get to that 14, a little over 14, and then the call we're going to be listening for is going to be EVA Operations Complete from Arthur.
So we're just about complete here. They're waiting for either the Dragon capsule to get up to 14.7 psi or the partial pressure O2 to get up to 2.62.
We're 4 minutes into the opening walkout. Cabin PPO2 is 2.9. Cabin pressure.
Oh, just kidding.
12.5.
They're at PPO2 is now at 2.9. So now they may just be balancing the air. Make sure they got the right mix of nitrogen and oxygen. Randy Darrow with a $6 donation to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Thank you very much, Randy. Appreciate the donation. Again, don't forget that the Polaris Dawn mission is pretty awesome, draws a lot of attention, but they're using all that attention to
Polaris Dawn crew continuing.
make it a fundraising effort for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So if you have the means and you're so inclined, consider making a donation to St. Jude's.
On the far left side of your screen is Mission Specialist and Medical Officer Anna Menon. To her left, or our right, is Mission Specialist Sarah Gillis. Both of these wonderful women are our fellow SpaceX employees. So incredible to see them in space doing amazing things.
Yeah, and seeing Sarah.
Where's the link for donate? So that's a good question. The link for donating is part of the YouTube live stream. So if you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, X, or Instagram, any of those other platforms, you got to go over to the YouTube live stream. And then on the YouTube live stream, it's attached directly to the live stream. So it should be right near the comments section. You can make a donation directly to St. Jude's if you would like to.
Who performed the first EVA operation, or excuse me, EVA operation. So Jared went first, and then Sarah after him. And then on the far right-hand side of the capsule, so not this photo, but the live view inside, was Scott Poteet, prefers to go by his call sign Kid. He had the other window seat. Now, if you tuned into the launch phase of Polaris Dawn, you might recall that Scott...
Period. 3 PSI. Cabin pressure is 13.3.
Scott is actually our Polaris Dawn pilot, so in order to enable EVA operations, he and Sarah had to swap seats. So Sarah has been keeping the pilot seat warm for Kid.
Yeah, and like we talked about, we only saw Jared and Sarah actually get up and go outside, but all 4 of these crew members did a spacewalk today. All 4 were exposed to the vacuum of space. This is the first time that's ever happened in human history, having 4 people all at the same time.
Yep.
We saw Jared and Sarah go out and do those mobility tests. Anna and Kid, one of their kind of main roles was being the eyes back inside. Very similar if you've ever watched the space station Spacewalk, where you'll have people inside who are able to kind of call out or fly a robotic arm or something. They're just a really important part of the team to make all of this work. Like, no spacewalk doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a vacuum, but like you're never doing it solo. And so they were...
Time Waster had a good question. Why do they go that high in the suits? So the pressure in the suit, if you notice in the bottom left-hand corner, is 18.3 psi in the suit. The Dragon is currently at 13.7. It's about, it's almost there. I think they said they're targeting 14.4. So, but really, the big thing is the pressure differential between those two. So the astronauts, in order to survive, they need that suit is designed to have about a 5 psi pressure differential. And so while they're making these adjustments, they're keeping about a 4 to 5 psi differential. And then once Dragon is ready to support the crew again, then they'll reduce that differential, and the astronauts will be able to go back to living off a Dragon instead of their suits.
That will be coming after we get confirmation that the repress.
We're 9 minutes into the O2 washout, less than 4 minutes remaining. Cabin PPO2 is 3.1. Cabin pressure is coming up on 14.1. I want to review a few things. So when the timer reaches 13 minutes, we're going to shut down the nitrox flow to suits. Then we're going to close secondary O2 valves, and then you can use your manual vent valve into plate. When your visors, do not disconnect umbilicals. How copy? One's good.
Each is good.
One good.
Report two good.
Okay, so just a little bit on the procedure.
We are less than 2 minutes from a TDRS handover, but copy your call and plan. We concur.
So that was Jared just reminding the rest of the crew that when the timer hits 13 minutes, the order of operations, they have that manual valve there, and this is something that we've seen all morning is continual check-ins.
EVA repress is complete, continuing suit washout.
Copy that, SpaceX.
All right, so the Dragon capsule repressurization has completed.
Repress is now complete.
So now they've got to make sure they got the right mix of nitrogen and oxygen.
Right now we're just waiting for that final,
And then-
call it the O2 washout. So again, we've been using nitrox instead of the pure oxygen into those suits.
And then once that's complete, then they're going to vent their suits. They'll vent the suits to the surrounding atmosphere to get to change that pressure differential down from the suits are 19.2 psi, and the cabin is 14.5 psi. So they will vent that and get themselves back to ambient cabin pressure. And then they'll be able to open their visors.
For anyone that has joined recently, unfortunately, you missed most of the fun.
You'll have
I
to
encourage you to rewind. Yep. Go back about an hour. We have had successful completion of both Jared and Sarah's spacewalks. We saw them move through their test matrix and perform the suit mobility tests and the testing of the Skywalker mobility aid located at the top of the Dragon capsule.
1 minute to go.
They moved through it quite quickly, really quite in the blink of an eye. And we've closed the forward hatch. We have repressurized the Dragon capsule, and we're now standing by for really the final operations of the morning. So yeah, unfortunately, if you only recently tuned in, you should definitely rewind and go back. There were some incredible views of the taking place during the EVAs. The crowd that we had in front of Mission Control here in Hawthorne was almost on cue. We're certainly excited, as were we, to see the views of Jared and Sarah emerging from the top of Dragon Resilience. It's been quite a morning, and I can't believe it's already almost 5 a.m. Pacific. We had
there it is. Arming, disconnecting nitrox to suit. And yep, please.
We might hear
Secondary O2 valves closed. EV1's closed.
there. Now all that static sound goes away.
Sport 1 closed.
Sport 2 closed.
That static sound was
You're going to manually vent down.
That static sound was not actually radio static. That was the fans inside the EVA suits circulating the air around their EVA suits. They got some pretty powerful fans in there. Now we can hear the venting from the suits. Their astronauts are currently on Vox, meaning they have open mics So we're hearing everything, including the fan noises and the venting and stuff like that. And that's what we were hearing. That was the big static sound, was the fans running and circulating air inside their suits. And that's so that, one, they can get oxygen to breathe, but two, that they don't get a big buildup of carbon dioxide right in front of their face. You don't want a big carbon dioxide bubble. Sounds like they might be opening their visors. That's kind of that clicking sound is.
Space.
Oh, he already said. He said, "Do you smell that?"
Dragon SpaceX, EVA operations complete.
Smells like space, I guess.
And that's
Copy that, SpaceX. We show the same. Nice job for everyone, and everyone at SpaceX who made it possible. All right. Section 9. Turn all seats, push to talk to manual. Armed.
Execute.
Space.
Wow. If you're just joining us, we just heard the call out that EVA operations are complete, which marks the completion.
EV1, comm check on manual push to talk.
Manual push to talk, loud and clear.
Yep, now they're off of Vox and back to push to talk.
All right, that's the crew just switching off from.
We have you loud and clear.
Just switching off from Vox and back on to the push to talk. That silence, really, that's it. That was the first ever commercial spacewalk. We started at 3:12 a.m. Pacific time, which puts us at 1 hour and 46 minutes. The 4 astronauts on board Dragon Resilience performed a suited pre-breathe process to acclimate their bodies for the reduced pressure. After that, the cabin was vented and the hatch door was opened.
And Mission Commander Jared Isaacman, he was the first to exit the spacecraft. He got out there. We saw him right as we were starting to get into that orbital sunset. He was able to complete all of his tasks before he ingressed, got back inside a Dragon. We did that quick attitude adjustment, and then it was SpaceX's own Sarah Gillis, the second to exit the spacecraft, do her task for the EVA. Jared and Sarah got back inside. Everybody's reporting back healthy. We had a pretty smooth and nominal repress. Our mission pilot, Scott Kidd Poteet, and our mission specialist and medical officer, Anna Menon, have been supporting the spacewalk throughout from inside. They went through the same pre-breathe, the same depress process as Jared and Sarah. They did a spacewalk too today, and everybody's reporting back healthy. And just, I'll say it again because all the stat heads out there, I know you guys are tracking, our official start time was 3:12 a.m. Pacific, and our official end was at 4:58 a.m. Pacific. That was 1 hour and 46 minutes of spacewalking time. Next, the crew's going to prepare for post-EVA operations. This is powering down everything on their suit. These were only needed, obviously, while they were in there. They're going to be able to get out of their suits next and kind of start moving around the cabin. They turned the Vox off, so we're not hearing kind of like the constant back and forth anymore. But wow. Really cool to see him back inside EVA Complete.
And it's, the work isn't completely done yet. They'll also have to perform some comms checks along with some additional tasks before their seats are rotated back into their pre-EVA position. And all in all, wow, just an incredible view. We've said it already a couple of times before if you're just joining.
Dragon SpaceX will be with you when you're ready in 9.3. Cabin atmosphere is looking pretty good right now, very stable.
Yeah, copy that, SpaceX, and we are ready for your seat rotation.
SpaceX copies,
All right,
report when
that
initiating.
is incredible news.
Okay. We're moving into seat rotation, so again, after that, the crew will be able to get out of their suits, and that'll be the end of just a really successful day. Hour and 46 minutes of spacewalking today. So the Polaris Dawn crew, they're back in their seats inside Dragon, completed a successful spacewalk, first ever from Dragon. A massive congratulations to the crew, all the teams at SpaceX who made this possible. Spacewalks are hard, and this was an incredible amount of work over years to get ready. Special thanks to Mike Hopper for being here with us today, sharing some great insights. Always good to have somebody who's done the thing to help you explain what's happening. That was awesome.
Not only having done EVAs himself, but also he's a Dragon rider. He commanded the Crew 1 mission, so it was great to have him. Now, Polaris Dawn is the first mission in the Polaris program that will demonstrate new technologies, conduct extensive research, and ultimately culminate in a flight of SpaceX's Starship with humans on board. All of this while continuing to raise funds and awareness for important causes here on Earth. Now, you can learn more about the program at polarisprogram.com.
This has been an incredible mission. On day 2, Dragon went to its high apogee point, the highest point in its orbit, more than 1,400 kilometers. That's higher than any Dragon mission to date. This is the farthest from Earth anybody has been since Apollo, and in over 50 years, since 1972. And then today, the crew, first civilians to perform an EVA in space, first one in Dragon.
Yeah, and the crew also the first to test Starlink laser-based communications in space. Excuse me, I got too excited. And of course, we'll also be back to bring you live coverage of Splashdown, which we are hoping to have in a couple of days, obviously weather dependent. But you can stay on top of all of the SpaceX updates by following us on X. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here real soon.
All right, that's going to do it there. They've completed the spacewalk. So, yeah, we've finally made it to the end here. That was wild. Like, that was such a cool view, seeing them out there, like the weird, awkward movements, and I don't know, that was super exciting. I hope to see more of that. I don't know if they have any other. I know they have future Polaris Dawn missions planned, but I don't know if they have future spacewalking missions planned. But we should definitely do more of that. I know there's talk maybe the next Polaris Dawn mission could potentially go to the Hubble Space Telescope and, try to raise its orbit or something like that, or a different Dragon mission could do that. It'd be pretty awesome. But yeah, I'm really hoping that we see more of that spacewalking, because that was cool and super successful. There was really only like one minor issue, which was opening the hatch. It was supposed to open on. They were supposed to release the stiction, and then they were supposed to open it with a motor, but the motor they didn't get the motor part working, so they just manually opened it. But that was really the only issue. Everything else seemed to go really, really well. So cabin pressurized, great, steady, fantastic news. And of course, Dirk DeVust with a $100 donation to St. Jude's Children's Hospital to wrap us up here at the end. Thank you very much, Dirk. What a generous donation. That's super awesome. So yeah, just in case you're forgetting, the Polaris Dawn mission, not only is it an awesome mission with a lot of exciting things like this spacewalk, but it is also a fundraiser for the St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So we go to space to improve life on Earth. So if you have the means and you're so inclined, consider making a donation from the YouTube live stream. If you're on Facebook or Twitch or Instagram or X, you got to move over to our YouTube live stream. But on the YouTube live stream, there's a fundraiser link directly on the live stream. 100% of the funds go directly to St. Jude's. None of it comes to me. None of it goes to Overlook Horizon. None of it goes to YouTube. It all goes directly to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, which I think we can all agree is an amazing cause. So, all right. Well, it's been a long morning. It's morning now, but for me. But yeah, that was a long one, but it was pretty awesome. I'm gonna wrap it up here and head on out. And I should be covering Splashdown. I guess it depends on when it is. Because I do have a couple things going on this weekend, but I am going to try to cover Splashdown, assuming it doesn't conflict with something that I have going on this weekend. But yeah, we're going to try to cover Splashdown for the conclusion of this event. And what a great mission. So far, so good. It is a 5-day mission. We're starting day 3 here. So they were supposed to do some Starlink laser demonstrations tomorrow. And then they've been doing science experiments the whole time. So they have over 40 science experiments from 19 different partner institutions. So they're doing all kinds of science experiments while they're up there. They'll probably do a bunch of those the rest of today and tomorrow. And then that'll bring them down to bring them to Splashdown. They'll come back and end it. So yeah, what a cool mission. Cool morning seeing spacewalks. And I hope to see more of that. So all right, well, we've been going for a long time, so I'm going to wrap it up. Consider joining our Discord if you want to continue the conversation with some of our like-minded space folks. You can go to overlookhorizon.com/Discord and continue the conversation if you want to continue or just want to meet up and make some friends in the space world. All right, well, that's going to do it for me. I'm heading out of here. My name's Tori. This is Overlook Horizon. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This was fun. This was exciting. I love seeing new stuff like this. I hope to see it again. All right, have a good day, everybody. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.